What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Transparency. Idaho4 MSM is crashing out, and I believe that they are starting the disinformation campaign all over again. That's my take, but they are definitely crashing out. So welcome back. Today, all day is Tuesday, July 28th, one day away from the Netflix premiere. I wonder if does Netflix release that like right at and after midnight? When does it like appear on your Netflix? Like, is it going to be like tonight, basically once 12:01 hits? Anyways, at some point you're going to have an opinion about the video. Thumbs it up, thumbs it down. Use the comment section. If you're catching this live, use the live chat. That feature is there for you guys. Okay. Well, today I got to speak with Chris Whitcomb just a little bit and, let him know that Bryan Kohberger said the words broken plea in his, filing/statements. Asked him what he thought about that. Told him that we want to have him back on. So maybe at the end of this week, beginning of next week, when everything is, I think everything has been filed, but lots of questions here. For the record, guys, Bryan Kohberger is not attempting to try to do this pro se. He filed this without an attorney, but he is 1,000% seeking an attorney. It's in the documents, and we're going to go through those. Are you going to do a live over the C-Tow auto in the Wells case? Yes, that will happen at some point today. Thank you. 3 sheets. Shitze. What? I was about to say 3 sheets to the wind. Welcome, new member. Okay, so we also have little pieces of the book that I want to point out again. And so first, though, let's take a look. The first page of this is blah, blah, blah. This is the second page, though. Ineffective assistance of counsel. So that's where he's actually writing the words ineffective assistance of counsel. States concisely all the grounds on which you base your application for post-conviction relief. A, ineffective assistance of counsel during criminal proceedings. Okay, so here it was not just for the plea deal, during criminal proceedings. Number 2, here are the B, plea not knowingly or voluntarily entered because it was induced by unkept promises. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the program. A C is plea not voluntarily entered because of threats asserted by petitioner's legal counsel. We're going to get into that. Prior to the petition, have you filed with respects to this conviction? And no, he hasn't filed the habeas. No, he hasn't filed anything else. If your application is based on the failure of counsel to adequately represent you, state concisely and in detail what counsel failed to do in representing your interests. A, failure to disclose of or review exculpatory evidence. Let me just see something. Yeah, i.e., example, unknown hair in Chapin's hand during plea discussions. B, counsel's insistence that petitioner's plea need not be truthful, despite petitioner's vehement denial of actual guilt You guys, people keep saying and writing comments on my threads, and I see on other threads, has Bryan Kohberger actually said that he didn't do it? And I'm over here like, do you fucking people read? Why are you even asking that question? Do you motherfuckers read? That's my question. Clip that shit. Put it out there. Do you people read? Okay? He claimed his entire innocence for how many years? Throughout the whole proceeding. And not only did he claim his innocence, but all the vag standing behind him and next to him, they were claiming that he was factually innocent. And this is an innocent person. God damn. Yeah, and I just said all the vag behind him. C. Promises made by counsel regarding LWAP, life without, I think that's without parole, status, i.e., immediate contact visits, i.e., freedom of movement, employment, and elaborate lies of death row life. Yeah. Okay. So again, we're going to go back over this all specifically, but are you seeking leave to proceed? Yes. Are you requesting the appointment of counsel? Right here, number 11. Again, for those that are on a fucking bus, okay, with no bus driver, all right? Here, are you requesting the appointment of counsel to represent you in this case? If your answer is yes, you must fill out a motion for appointment of counsel and supporting affidavit, as well as a motion and affidavit for fee waiver. He says yes. So anybody saying that he is going about this pro se, okay, he is not. He filled out all this seeking, and he's going to try to get an attorney. So please, just read. Yes. Specific relief, he's out a withdrawal of a guilty plea. Now we're going to get into the first part of what I want to talk about today, which is who the fuck in Idaho could actually represent this man? I'm being serious. And the answer to that is nobody. Do you want to know why I believe that nobody in Idaho could represent this man? Because what will happen to you in your career? Okay? This case has been labeled, it's like one of those cases, like if you were to take on, who's going to want to represent, when Chris Watts wanted to do his 35C, okay? Who is going to represent him in Idaho? How about this? Who can even do the job? Give me a lawyer in Idaho worth a fucking damn. Because all the ones that I see, and I would say maybe Joe Bolton. Maybe Joe Bolton. That is the only person in Idaho that I think has fucking brass balls. Okay? And she's not afraid to take on the cops. But Joe Bolton is not a public defender. But she was also interviewed for the Dateline episode for the league. But she actually was on the side of opposite the prosecution. She was saying that, well, I think it's obvious why they didn't go and get search warrants for anything to do with the IGG, because they didn't have probable cause. So, but who's even in Idaho that's capable of this is about, just for this hearing, you need somebody that can litigate, that can oral argue, a litigator, somebody that knows the law. Who can do that there in Idaho? And also just like who would you trust to do this? I'm gonna tell you this right now. Yeah. If Bryan Kohberger is claiming that his public defenders were threatening him, okay, all these claims, that's what the government gave him. How about this? Where is the leak? Where is the leak at? Where are we at in that investigation? Don't you think that should be handled? Don't you think that would be a very, really important part of like this whole like process? Where's this investigative leak? It doesn't matter who's the leak. It happened, right? And the government is responsible for it because the government is both sides of this case. This case, I would be making an example out of the trust in the system to have public representation. We don't have any money. I want to know if Bryan Kohberger, in these, everybody's talking about the fact that, well, if there is a hearing, he's going to have to testify. And then I'm over here like, okay, well, what evidence does Bryan Kohberger have to back up any of this shit? Well, I would think the leak is evidence. I would think the fact that Dateline has his fucking phone, his entire phone, is evidence. But I mean, nobody just wants to talk about the fact that like due process here, and that I don't get it. But then again, I don't get a lot of things with mainstream media because for whatever reason, mainstream media has become tabloid central. We're about to show you guys some more clips. I mean, last night I couldn't even breathe over what Ashley Banfield had on her channel. Notice that Ashley Banfield's no longer with like a news organization. She just fills in or whatever from here from time to time. Let's take a look at something. This is right out of the broken plea here. Again, mainstream media wilding out. According to Payne's sworn statement, he somehow learned about Kohberger from an FBI cast member, not from identification of his car, as has always been believed. If true, this changes the prosecution narrative entirely. Payne was asked before December 19th, was the FBI cast team member co-located with you? The answer, yes, ma'am. Nick Balance co-located. Okay? Go and look at Anthony Dollinger's declaration, an affidavit that he filed to keep fucking documents potentially being heavily redacted. The lies of these people. Anthony Dollinger saying that everybody was running their own investigation within the agencies that were assisting, and that they had their own way of doing it, each agency. I mean, absolutely wild. Kathleen Zellner is way too old, in my opinion. How long had he been co-located with you? I don't remember exactly, but it had been several weeks at that point. And was that Nicholas Balance? Yes, ma'am. What other FBI team members were co-located with you? Oh, goodness, a lot. Oh, really? We had technical assistant Maria S.A. Jacobson right there. Right there. There's your fucking leak. Right there. S.A. Jacobson out of Coeur d'Alene. He did work in the Brian Drake murder. Okay. Fucking total ass clown. Sucks at his job. And numerous other FBI special agents that were there to assist. And the two names that he gives up are two names that were on emails. They were all co-located. Co-fucking located. Okay. Let's go to the record in the state versus Kohberger here. Judge Hilper says, setting the stage at the beginning of these closed proceedings, present in the courtroom today are the defendant with counsel, Ms. Taylor and Ms. Mathis. Is Mr. Lodgton here? Mr. Lodgton is here. Taylor responds. For the state, we have Thompson, Nye, Jennings. Yes. When was the first time you heard Bryan Kohberger's name? She asked after a series of questions about his job and background. At that point in time, he was a corporal with the police standards training, blah, 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 blah. The first time I heard Bryan Kohberger's name was December 19th, 2022. Right there. And what was that a result of? That was a result of investigative genetic genealogy that was being undertaken by the FBI. We had a phone call that evening, and we were told Bryan Kohberger's name. And before that, Mr. Kohberger was not on your radar? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. How does this not get a Franks? Because the entire probable cause was centered around 11/29/2022, acting like they knew about what Daniel Tanego and Curtis Whitman did. Ann Taylor thought she won. She got the man to admit the fact that you didn't even know about this guy until December 19th. And then, so how are you writing up on December 23rd probable cause that states the complete fucking opposite? Unreal. This is critically important statement because according to MPD reports, no one started looking for a white 2015 Hyundai Elantra until December 26th, a full week later. And that was supposedly due to a WSU officer stumbling onto it in parking registrations, according to Detective Payne's sworn statement. That's not the right date. About December 26th is November. That was a typo. Had to be a typo. So well before the FBI revised its analysis of the mystery white sedan from a Nissan Sentra to a Hyundai manufacturer between 2011 and 2013. If we are led to believe the WSU police just happened to spot Kohberger's car a week after the detective in charge of the investigation learned of his name, no, it was a whole month earlier. It is significantly stretch of credibility. At what point did experts finally decide they were looking for a 2015 Elantra? Before December 19th, was the FBI cast team member co-located with you? Yes. So again, everything starts and ends with WSU. Well, let's take a look at you think Hitler's going to be like, yeah, Bryan, you're going to get another, you know, I don't want to say the word. You're going to get another chance at this. He couldn't even give him the opportunity to have a Franks when he should have, when there was ample proof that was shown that there was nothing but lies. So, I don't know. I listen to when people say that we've seen all this evidence. What evidence have we seen? Did you guys have a trial that I just wasn't privy to? We have seen nothing. Absolutely nothing. Fuck, we don't even know what's going to be admissible or not. So, again, last night, you know, this disinformation campaign. Let's look at NBC and Ashley in this text, or this tweet, I should say, that got put out back whenever the hell it was, 2023. I shared it. It's the thumbnail. According to NBC News, remember that's Dateline, remember they're the leak. According to NBC News, Steve Goncalves said one of the surviving roommates of the Idaho4 passed out after seeing the crime scene. What the fuck? That's new. That never happened, according to any of the work. And the other was hyperventilating while on the phone with 911, which may explain why the call was made about an unconscious person. Can you just imagine being quoted by Ashley Banfield for you talking to somebody and just like giving your opinion on something? And making it seem like that's the guy, like that's... According to NBC News, Steve Goncalves said one of the surviving roommates of the Idaho4 passed out after seeing the crime scene. That never happened. Why would Steve say that? Who told that to Steve? That's a question that's allowed to be asked. That was reported by NBC. Then it was retweeted by News Nation and Ashley Banfield. Like, we could sit here all day. We could probably sit here all month, if not all year, and literally go through all of the disinformation. Not misinformation, but disinformation that has been spearheaded by mainstream fucking media with this case. It's truly fucking unreal. This dude did not have a chance in hell. And how is that? Okay. Well, because guess what? Guess why? Because the FBI says that we know it's him and blah, blah, and we're telling all this stuff to the parents and we're sharing all this information with the parents. And then you get the parents behind, we know that this is who did this to our daughter. And who the hell ever wants to go against something like that? Whoever wants to go up against someone's family and just say, like, where are you getting that information from? The FBI. Ugh. The police. Oh. Well, there is no way that the police gave Steve this information. Or do we say, yeah, the FBI and the police gave Steve this information? And so there it's wrong. Right here, according to NBC News, Steve Goncalves said one of the surviving roommates of the Idaho4 passed out after seeing the crime scene. According to each and every one of these people, of the surviving roommates, of people that were there, Dylan and Bethany did not see the crime scene and pass out. In fact, they never went upstairs. So that's why my thumbnail has this Banfield tweet. What a twit. So again, did Steve Goncalves just make that up, or did somebody tell him that? Do you understand that there's been no police report that anybody could have possibly read because it's sealed or it's not being passed out that's from the Pennsylvania State Police? Anything to do with what transpired during anything to do with a raid at his home to be arrested? Do you know that to this point in time, we do not have the interview that took place with Payne there, with Gilbertson there, and Bryan Kohberger after he was, arrested at his house, taken down to the barracks, and talked to. This is what Idaho is trying to keep. That's the big part of the records request that they're trying to keep out of our hands, saying that it's not their record. What are you talking about? Payne and Gilbertson flew to Pennsylvania from Idaho for this arrest. It's Payne. Payne is the lead. Why would Payne go to Pennsylvania? Payne and Gilbertson ran the interview. Where is this? Why wouldn't it be out there? Why would this be the thing that you're trying to keep from anybody seeing? What the fuck? What's going on here? Nobody will talk about this case and the overwhelming evidence with me. Everybody refuses. I've reached out to every outlet to say, you said there's overwhelming evidence? Let's chat. Please walk me and my viewers through this overwhelming evidence that you've seen that I didn't see and the rest of the world didn't see, because we want it. We're actually the ones that are trying to get it. We're trying to get the documents unsealed. Where is this evidence? Please show me the crime scene photos that are providing you with this overwhelming evidence. Please show me the test results of any of the swabs done at the house. Please show me the autopsy results. Please show me this overwhelming evidence that points to Bryan Kohberger that's actually admissible in a courtroom. What's that, Lana? What's that? Nobody, not a single person from mainstream media or their little show ponies that they put on to come on their fucking platforms with them to talk and jive about shit that just doesn't even, they're just crashing out live together. Why crash out with one person? I need other people with me on panels so I can crash out, not by myself. I don't need to get anybody up on this panel ever on my platform to speak the truth, to speak what truly has gone on in these past 4 years. Well, it will be 4 years in November. Idaho is the armpit, the literally like the butt of every joke right now. everybody is telling you that they lied in this entire case. They've come out and said it. They've either lied or they violated their own policies or they're changing coverage areas. They're not being truthful on how many weapons could have potentially made different wounds, knowing that a K-bar knife is the size that it is, and there's wounds that there's no way that a K-bar knife could have ever made due to it being way skinnier. Wild shit. But think about this. Remember when Steve Goncalves was talking about that kill kit? Bryan Kohberger went in there with a kill kit. Well, Steve Goncalves would have had to have known that he at least had a brain to say to himself, well, I know that these wounds couldn't have been made by that weapon because 1 + 1 does not equal 10. Nobody wants to keep the blame where the blame needs to be, which is from the moment that this case was handled, it was handled like shit. And it continued to be handled like shit. Why? Because of the leadership in this case. Because of the leadership in Idaho and Latah County. You know, Steve coming out and talking about, I don't want to waste any more money of our taxpayers. This has already cost like $8 million. How about we ask the judge that kept on approving all the money being spent? How was that? How did that continue to happen? If he had no shot in hell, why are 16 experts over here saying something completely different? 16, not 1 or 2. 16. 16 experts. Funny that the state didn't go and get a blood spatter expert until almost a year, if not longer. They didn't consult with anybody. They couldn't even label the evidence markers correctly. Why is a police officer named Jacob Tisdall saying that he's making the movements of the white car in question in report 10 of MPDs? Like, that was issued on 11/15. Why are we lying about who actually has possession of Bryan Kohberger's phone? It's right here in this report. Report 105. These are the true facts about Bryan Kohberger's phone. Bryan Kohberger's phone that got released to Dateline. Look at this shit. On December 29th, based on the above information, the Latah County Court signed and ordered finding probable cause for the criminal complaint charging burglary, 4 counts of murder. On December 29th, Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his family's home. Bryan Kohberger's cell phone was taken into was taken into evidence as part of that search warrant at his home. Kohberger's cell phone device is currently in evidence at the FBI Philadelphia Regional Computer Forensic Laboratory, located at blank. The phone data was extracted by FBI Special Agent Jeff Tanzola subsequent to the warrant being served. All that they were able to do was do that. This was a warrant for seizure, not search. Then, on January 9th, Maury received a hard drive from SSA Tanzola, which contains a copy of the data extracted from the phone belonging to Kohberger. That's what I was after, because that's yours. MPD. That data is saved on a Seagate 2 terabit external USB drive with the serial number blank and is labeled as Philadelphia RCFL evidence number blank. I applied for and was granted a warrant seeking the evidence from the hard drive provided by Pennsylvania, which contains a forensic image of Bryan Kohberger's phone, which was stored in the secure computer forensics lab at the Moscow Police Department. At 15:50 hours on January 9th, I served the warrant on the hard drive located in the forensics lab in his own lab. Pursuant to the warrant, I downloaded the files to the forensic computer located in the secure forensic lab at the Moscow Police Department. That's yours. That's what we want. And if you look into what Philadelphia's lab can do, they don't do any of this part. They just do that. They just do your extraction. Okay? I completed the warrant return of everything that he got. Now, I began examining the data for any accounts linked to the phone and Kohberger with other electronic service providers, such as Facebook, Snapchat, etc. I located the following installed applications, website history, screenshots, and usernames and passwords associated with an electronic service provider. All of these. There is not a single report in any of the MPD shit, in any of the ISP shit, where any one of these third parties on what anything was found. Like you would normally see in a report, like this, for example, in the Nolan Wells case. This person telling you what they did, just like Maury did, and then you getting to the download of the GPS information, and then it having the date, time, location, and it having the results printed out like this in the report of what it found. That's what a fucking report looks like. Instead, in this case, again, that's Nolan Wells' case that's going on. Instead, in this case, Maury just writes up this freaking report just as is and says, these electronic service providers may be storing data relevant to the investigation, which may have been deleted from the device. I will be requesting assistance from the Latah County Prosecutor's Office to apply for warrants to these companies for any data from accounts related to the following identifiers located in the phone data. And then lists all this. Well, look at all this. This is what I want. I want everything to do with Bryan Kohberger's Yik Yak, linked Reddit, Twitter, Tinder, Dropbox, Washington Trust Bank, PayPal, YouTube, TikTok, Amazon, Visa, prepaid, whatever, processing, when to meet, all this shit, GroupMe, Hulu, VPN, all this crazy crap. Do you remember what they tried to do about his Strava account? Where have you seen, I've gone through every single report that Maury has issued in this case, and every single report that anybody's issued in this case that has to do with Idaho. Where do you see any report talking about any of the findings in any of these third parties? There are none. Do you know that what they were going to testify to on the stand? Maury was just going to testify to the fact that Bryan Kohberger's, all of his device material, all of these third parties, these apps, none of them linked to any of the victims or the surviving roommates. That's all they were testifying to. That's this overwhelming evidence that none of this shit None of his socials. That's all he was going to be testifying to. We can't get Bryan Kohberger's interview, and we can't get his phone. But yet, mainstream media, they've seen the evidence. What the fuck evidence? Because in the reports of the police and Mowry, who claims to be an expert, he's going to be testifying that there is no evidence. So what overwhelming evidence are you speaking about? Then I just talked to the UC Davis, man that wants to marry me for a green card. Just kidding. The man that did the big elaborate Bryan Kohberger, he like recreated it. I showed it on my channel back. God, it's been a while. But he said he would come on the channel and he would talk about it, what he did and all that stuff. And talk about the touch DNA and how by shaking hands, by touching something that Bryan had already touched, direct contact, that they went ahead and mimicked all of this and used a knife sheath and everything. And the question is it possible to, somebody that he would have come in contact with, made contact with, and then could that have been transferred? And so that they did at UC Davis, they did a ridiculous experiment on it all. And his results was that it is possible. All I know is I sent all of that stuff to the defense because I would think that they would maybe want to talk to somebody like that who's like running a fucking lab. He's running the UC Davis lab. Like, are you kidding me? Like, if that's not, I don't know, reputable or like credible. I mean, these are what our students in college and after college are doing, and running labs and doing case studies. This is the research end of it. Whatever. But hey, let's go to mainstream media and listen to this overwhelming evidence.
Breaking just moment.
Again, there is no overwhelming evidence. But I do want to hear from Kevin Fixler.
Now trying to take it all back. After pleading guilty and accepting 4 consecutive life sentences, Bryan Kohberger is now claiming he's innocent, arguing that his confession was the product of false promises and bad legal advice. Tonight, we sit down with investigative reporter Kevin Fixler to break down exactly what Kohberger is claiming, why overturning a guilty plea is one of the most difficult challenges in criminal law, and whether his arguments have any realistic chance of succeeding. We also ask what the
prepared something could be coming, and that was the extent of what I was able to obtain from him. And then I played the waiting game like everybody else. So at least I had the.
How are you doing, buddy?
It was a very busy day, as you can imagine. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, I bet. I heard whisperings early in the day that there's some big Bryan Kohberger news coming. And I'll be honest, I thought to myself, not again with this guy, not again with the big breaking news. What could this possibly be? This is not one that I saw coming. Tell us how you first heard that this might be happening.
Well, I know Mike Baker at the New York Times, and he alluded to basically, be prepared, something could be coming. And that was the extent of what I was able to obtain from him. And then I played the waiting game like everybody else. So at least I had.
He's writing a book with Mike Baker. Okay? They're writing a book together, from my understanding. That's my understanding.
The benefit of sort of knowing to keep clicking the refresh on the homepage of the New York Times, but he obviously broke yet another major scoop in this case. It's the second time he has spoken to a member of the Kohberger family, and this is the one everybody was sort of chasing. And so here it is. And we see how this played out. So they broke the news, and then I just tried to pick up the scraps and try to get reactions and do my job too.
I will tell you, I've come to know some news people now, some journalists and TV news folks, and they are more tight-lipped than the CIA. When it comes to like breaking stuff, it's always these whisperings of something's coming, but I probably told you already too much, and just wait till later. I was, again, getting it from people at Fox, yourself, others saying, hey, something's going to happen. Can't tell you what. And I will say it didn't disappoint as far as this is, I think, big breaking news in this case. So for everybody who is maybe finding this out for the first time, we're hearing for the first time from Bryan Kohberger himself. He actually issued a written statement. Again, Mike Baker from the, he has to say, over a year later, it is self-evident that in myopic narrative, a word, to use big words, he likes to sound a little smarter than others. That's at least what seems to be kind of bleeding through all of this to me.
He was long known among peers for a lot of use of $5 words, as we would say in journalism. And this is his writing style. So this fits. I mean, I can tell this is authentic. This is from Bryan Kohberger. I don't have any questions about that anyway, but this is how he writes. And you can see it as academic papers. And as many remember or need to be reminded, he was a PhD student at Washington State University, heavily on one particular defense expert from this case, and a lot of documents that nobody else has seen, not in the unseen or FBI agent. I think you've covered this book in on your show, and it's Christopher Whitcomb, a former FBI agent, unaffiliated with this case, but he put out a book earlier this year, relying fairly heavily on one particular defense expert from this case, and a lot of documents that nobody else has seen, not in the unsealed court records, not in public records. He has a treasure trove of these things, and wrote a book that basically points at flaws in the investigation from law enforcement, missteps by the prosecution.
Kevin, what are you talking about? You can just look at the MPD police reports. Let's just start with report 10. There's a huge, big problem there. The police claim the white car, and the white car is Jacob Tisdall driving around with his Ford Fusion. More importantly, we went and got the ODP paperwork, and they tried to hide who was working that night with the plainclothes operation. They deleted people's names. They actually even deleted one of the dudes that's all over the body cams named Nate Rosendahl. The night of the murders, Idaho Moscow Police Department tried to hide these records from me not even a month ago. But thank God we did a dual request and got it from ODP to prove this ridiculous shit.
And maybe pieces of evidence overlooked by the defense, allegedly.
The other thing that struck me is that he's not in here saying, I was railroaded. I don't feel like I really understood what was going on. Like what he has said, the word he uses, I'm counting at least 3 times, maybe more, in just a quick look at this, is innocent. He says, my actual innocence is my truth. Those who believe in my innocence, to my family who believe.
There it is. Hey, give it up. At least they got it right here. He does say I'm innocent, right? People over here writing and saying like, he doesn't even say that he's innocent. I'm like, I have no idea what you're fucking reading. I don't even have time to comment back on that.
Believes in my innocence. This is not a person saying, hey, you know what? I've had some second thoughts. I really want to see if the state can prove this. He's saying I'm an innocent person who's been sentenced to life without parole 4 times over, and I'm done with that, and I want my trial.
Yes, and I think there's 2 things happening here. He's pointing to, again, sort of the missteps or the coercion he feels that he encountered from his public defense team, which I have reported spent $5.5 million. If that's not an adequate defense for someone who's
let that sink in for a hot second, everybody. 5.5.
Then you should ask yourself, what the hell happened? Who spends $5 million? $5 million to have something in the last week, potentially not even a week, like a day or 2. Like, why wouldn't you be scratching your head and saying, wait, something seems off here? And why did the judge let the plea deal happen? I mean, does it really take a freaking... It's right in front of you. Exactly, Kevin Fixler. Who spends $5 million?
$500,000 on the defense that didn't even go to trial. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, his main argument is about ineffective assistance of counsel. And this sort of gets at that question of, I thought Bryan Kohberger waived all his appeals, but we know from a U.S. Supreme Court case, it's actually based out of Idaho. It's called Garza v. Idaho. And it addresses just as Supreme Court ruled in 2019 that you do. So he is able to lean into that. The nuance, and again, I'll let you explain it. You're the legal expert here. But the idea that post-conviction relief is not technically an appeal, but it is something always granted under the Sixth Amendment. Again, this U.S. Supreme Court has set that precedent, and this is the way in which he can appeal if it is eventually the route that a judge and a court. Ironically, Judge Hippler will be the one overseeing this. We're all familiar with him from the trial that wasn't here in Ada County in Boise. So he will be the first to take a crack at this.
Look at him. Look at him. Ow, hippie. Let me get on the back of that.
Review whether or not Bryan Kohberger deserves a different public defender and whether or not he's going to assign him. And then, like I said, I mean, I think the other thing is you've got sort of, I wasn't adequately represented. In addition, I'm innocent. And those two things aren't necessarily connected, nor will the innocence claim necessarily hold up to whether or not he deserves this essentially appeal route. But again, he is making a statement for the very first time. And the thing that also really stuck out to me is he says at the end of his statement, I really do want to be heard.
So we're going to get into the legal nuance of this in a little bit. And what I think he's doing is this is not an appeal. He's asking for a withdrawal of his plea, which is different to a significant extent in that it doesn't evoke the waiver of appeal that he took as part of his plea. We'll get into that in a second, but I want to walk people through kind of how this all played out. So did Mike Baker from New York Times actually had a phone call with him, correct? Did that occur before or after this written statement?
So I know Mike, and I'm not here to speak on his behalf by any means, but my understanding is that Mike had a call with Bryan Kohberger from the prison. I think there was discussion about how a statement would be issued.
Okay, but let's really back this all up. Mike Baker can't just call up Bryan Kohberger, okay, at prison. Like, he doesn't have a phone that just like hit me on the hip, okay? So there has to be some foundation here, and that they were in communication, and that Bryan would have actually had to call him. So that means he has to be approved to be on his list to call, okay? Unless he did it where he called his parents, and his parents, had a three-way. So let's just get that out, that Mike Baker just didn't call up Bryan Kohberger, hey, just want to write up a story here. You got anything for me? I just want everybody to understand that there's a relationship built there. And I know that he talked to Bryan Kohberger's sister in the past. So for what it's worth.
Issued, he received that written statement, which you noted in Bryan Kohberger's language, and then Mike had a subsequent call with Bryan Kohberger to clarify some issues. A thing he notes in his story, and everyone should check out Mike Baker's story at the New York Times. It really is the best piece. Is the only reporter who's talked to Bryan Kohberger or received that statement, so has the best context and understanding. And it's a beautiful story. You should check it out. But did
I meet Mike, by the way, in Idaho? Is that
you sure did?
Oh, I
did.
Very nice. Go ahead.
Mike has covered the case from the very first day, just like myself and others. Mike Ruiz, Brian Entin. There's a whole group. But
Lana Oriani.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll name credibility. Gosh, I lost my train of thought. But Kohberger is obviously advocating for another bite at the apple, and I don't. Yeah, what the chances are here? I understand it's a very high bar, and
I question if when they want to say another bite at the apple, okay? I believe that the apple was never bitten yet because there was no trial. Where I think like another bite at the apple is like a retry. For me, and I get what lawyers want to talk about, what they like, there's another bite at the apple. If what he is saying is true, he never had his fucking first bite, okay? We were on path to do all of this, and all of a sudden I'm getting, rushed and approached by, mitigating specialist Ann Taylor, her whole fucking team. They're bringing in my folks, okay, and going over the prosecution has a plea deal and blah blah blah, and it's like, Wait, what? But I didn't do it. You know, if he's saying, but I didn't do it. And this is how the plea is going to go. He's going to ask you these questions, and you're just going to say yes, yes, yes. What do you mean? But I didn't. Bryan, the mitigating specialist was just walking through, got toured, and blah, blah, blah. And you don't understand. Like, this is what, like, that's what he's more or less saying. That, and I think that, I think Hitler's going to hear him out. Because I think Hitler wants to challenge him a little bit. So I don't think that this is going to get just flat out denied. I don't think that that's going to happen at all. I think Hitler's looking at this as an opportunity, like, hey, if Kohberger wants to talk a little bit, again, I don't know. According to wirh, it's like Hitler doesn't want to be known as the guy that gave Bryan Kohberger his, like, what? Because a lot. When you're talking about ineffective assistance of counsel and you want to talk about this entire proceeding, I think Ann Taylor did make huge fucking errors. I do. And it doesn't matter if you spend $5 million. You know how many people build homes that spend fucking $2, $3, $4, $5 million? You know how many mistakes that they make? And it costs them $100,000 each time they make a mistake? Okay? The house should have really only been $2.5 million, but we made some fucking big mistakes, and it ended up costing us $3.1 million. So, is the reason that it's $5 million that Ann Taylor had to spend is because, I don't know. What? Is it because the case was so fucked up that she could find literally all of these experts that she never thought that they... Oh, wow, yeah, this, there's all this shit. Again, until you want to break down how the $5 million was spent, I just... That screams to me like, who builds a home and doesn't move into it? It just fucking says, you know what? I'm just going to stay on the streets. I'm good, thanks. Can you imagine that? Who builds a home, $5 million, and then just says, you know what? I'm just going to live on the streets. I'm not even going to attempt to go into my home and live in there and see what happens. And I built my home out of like all this fucking sweet ass, brick and wood. And think about it, just logically, like who, and then what type of a leader is running this fucking caboose, okay, and is saying and doing all this stuff, and then right at the last minute says, we need to do this, and hey, it's not even worth going to trial, because then we're gonna be able to preserve all of your rights, because everything that they violated, you're gonna then have all these outs on an appeal, blah blah blah. Like, what the fuck? Who would ever give somebody that type of advice? He's talking about disinformation. What is Bryan Kohberger going to come and say that Ann said that there was this? What information did you provide Bryan Kohberger with that was not just, it's not misinformation, it is disinformation. That means it is purposely done and it's wrong, and it's provided to you to deceive you. And how does Bryan Kohberger or anybody in this situation, because it happens every fucking day. Every day. Every single day, so many times a day, lawyers go to their clients and say, hey, if I can get this down to disorderly conduct, or do this, blah, 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 or, hey, but I didn't do anything. I know, but blah, 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 blah. So you want me to take a plea deal to every single fucking day? And the question is why? Well, because it saves money. Okay, it saves the state a bunch of money. But that means that you did it in the beginning. There's not these plea deals that happen after freaking years in a quadruple homicide that get handled like it was some type of drug offense. That's absurd. That to me, I want to know if Becca Barlow and Jay Lawson and Mathis and Ann Taylor, I want to know which one of them could potentially flip and take Bryan Kohberger's side in this. You saw the way that they were sitting there that day. Becca Barlow looked like she wanted to, it looked like she had a barf bag there. But all it's going to take is one of those people to say, yes, this is what took place. And who better than Becca Barlow, who does not practice in Idaho? Who is it going to be? And will that be enough? And then you mix it with, I mean, if you're talking about having a hearing, right, you need a really good litigator. And I think that if I had to pick one person in fucking Idaho, I'd want Jill Bolton. I would want Jill Bolton. I don't know if she's conflicted out. And what I mean by conflicted out is with that Dateline episode, she was in it. She was in it. But I'm wondering if he can, but she was in it from the standpoint of like, she wasn't siding with the prosecution at all. She came in it as a defense attorney saying that, and spoke. So I'm just curious of that. But that's who I would pick. Why would you pick Herlana? I thought she fucked over the Moors. Well, yeah, because it was about money. Okay? And because she had horrible researchers. Okay? If she would have had better researchers, you know, I think it's a different story. But she knows what she's doing. She's good. She knows what she's doing, and she needs a win. She needs a win after what just happened with that Moore case. She needs a win. And she takes on the police. She sued the police and won. She used to be a prosecutor. Okay, so would I go with Jill Bolton if I want to win, if I want someone that's good? If I want somebody that has wrote papers on your Fifth Amendment right to remain, you know, silent, but yet if you're talking about a civil case, how can you... It was really interesting how she wrote some stuff that she wrote. Otherwise, I think everybody in Idaho sucks. Name me somebody from Idaho that fucking has cahoons. Not a single one. Jill Bolton's already on her own little island. She's already outcast in a way. You know what I mean? And so I just think that that's somebody that would have no problem taking it on. This has nothing to do about the death penalty. This could be potentially only for this hearing. You need to go balls deep with this hearing and have the best, or you don't stand a chance. And you need somebody that's going to challenge Hitler, and that's Jill Bolton. She's not going to, she's not going to be like Ann Taylor, and Hitler says something back to her, and she gets into her little fucking shell and shrivels up like a little fucking prune. Jill Bolton is going to press her tits right up against him. And I know that. And she wants to win. Fuck legal victories or whatever the fuck, you know, Ann Taylor was selling over there. But that's, you know, BK is my rights. BK is not my son. BK signifies our rights in this country, which mainstream media has completely fucking lost the grip and reality of. That if they've actually watched what has gone on for the past 4 years, there is hella due process issues. There's hella constitutional issues in this fucking case. And I live in the United States of America. I'm fighting for our rights. It has nothing to do about guilt or innocence. Nothing like that for me at all. It has to do with the right that if the media should not be running our justice system. And right now, the media is running our justice system. The media thinks that they can fucking put campaigns together and, hey, here we go. The media does it because they sensationalize everything. They try to get in good graces with the victims' families and lick their assholes. And saying, hey, here's a platform, you can just tell your story. No, I need to go totally left or right, whatever the fuck way they're spinning around. It's not political when I say left or right. They're off on their own thing about, you want to talk about grifting? You want to talk about fucking grifting? Huh. What did they do to Kara, Xana's mother, for 4 years? Fuck that. Nobody will debate me in the facts in this case. Nobody will debate me on the actual timeline of how things laid out in this case. And Ann Taylor is a pussy. How do you say that this man's factually innocent? And then whether you were the lead counsel, whether you did it or somebody else did it, y'all were in a room and a man is saying that he didn't do it, and you're combating him and saying that I can't let you do this, you don't understand. Even if you didn't do it, I know that you didn't do it, but we're not going to get any calls from Hitler. We're not going to get this. We're not going to get that. I promise you we will do everything. We will not leave your side. We're going to do this. I'm going to make it so you can have this. What? And then goes as far as then having the mitigating specialists come in there and talk about taking a tour and lying about the living conditions. I mean, do you guys truly think that didn't happen? Fuck yeah, it happened. What do you think these defense attorneys think about stupid cases you deal with when you've ever had to fucking have a lawyer for anything? When their mouth is moving, they're fucking lying. People say to me, Lana, why don't you become a lawyer? Because I'm not a liar. I go watch the movie Liar, Liar, okay? The pen is royal blue. I'm not a liar like these fuckers. So many fucking lawyers are liars. And they have no fucking problem with it. None. I'm not like them. And is it so fucking bad that the world wants transparency? Why do any of these people get to pick and tell us what they think the evidence shows when nobody has seen the evidence? How do you get out there and fucking lie, you fat fuck in a suit? You look at these people. I'm not talking about anybody on this fucking screen right here. Okay. These people that were on all these MSM crashing the fuck out, and I'm here for it. I love it. They're little squirmy assholes. Buttercup tight fucking asses. Yeah. Squirm, baby. Cheers. You would think that they don't live in America. You would think that nobody's going to come out here and have the balls to say, like, hey guys, we have rights here. This is a fucking due process issue. There's been issues this whole time. We have the police admitting. The police are admitting under oath that they didn't have Bryan's name until the 19th. So why were they putting in a probable cause that they had him, and how they got to him was by the car on the 29th when Curtis Whitman and Daniel Tanego did what they did. I mean, what the fuck? If you want to sit there and swallow that shit, you can. If you like your fucking turkey sandwich with spit in it and jizz, eat it. Go ahead. You're the idiot. You're the fool. If that's how you like it, go eat it. I'm not going to eat that shit. I'm going to demand more. I'm going to demand it more for the families. Because at the end of the day, the families every single day have to live with this. I think the families should be pissed off at every single person involved in the process. But you can't be pissed off at people that are covering the case. Why? Why? What? Covering the case? That's absurd. You can't be mad at people wanting to talk about something and then going on Netflix. Again, what the hell is going on? Just like you cannot claim privacy rights for people that aren't you, while these people that you're trying to claim privacy rights from the city is for people that are going on fucking all these they're part of the books, they're part of the documentaries. They're signing away their privacy when they're signing these fucking contracts with no red lines. Why aren't we asking ourselves and wondering and asking ourselves, how did this not go to trial the first time around? Why did Bill Thompson ever want to do it this way, and how did he not think that this was all going to blow up one day? Why aren't we looking at the words that Bryan Kohberger has never spoken out once? Ann Taylor made him stand in silence. He's never got a chance to speak. When people want to say he's so egotistical or he's this or he's that, you guys, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. But we have seen nothing from him personally. And all we're hearing from is, we trust us, we have all this evidence against him. There's a reason that he took the plea deal. Fuck that. Trust you on what? I don't have to trust you. And in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we shouldn't trust anything. We should be asking for transparency, we the people. I don't need to trust you. Show your fucking work. Show the shit. But nobody can and nobody will and nobody wants to. Why? Because so many people will lose their fucking jobs. That's why. And so let me get this straight. You guys, mainstream media is protecting a bunch of little fucking, all right? A bunch of liars. Because I think how mainstream media should be about this is they should be all about our human rights, right? And if you think that this was a fair and just process, and no shit, it wasn't a fair and just process, so what happened to those victims? But the only way that there can be a fair and just outcome for those victims is if you do it the right way. Otherwise, the rest of existence, what people get to just keep talking about certain people in this case, whether they're a witness, whether they're a victim, whether whatever, however they want, because guess what? There's been no transparency. No, people can't even go and sue people because the information isn't out there. So you can just keep on making up whatever fucking narrative you want, and nothing can truly happen to you. Think about that. Guess who pays these people? When you kiss people's asses and you're going to put out their narrative, they're going to keep coming to you, and you're then going to get these scoops, and you're going to get that, and you're going to get this. And it's like, you know what? I'm fine with all that. I'll just continue to be a for the people, for the transparency world that I'm living in. Because I don't need to be scoring interviews with people, and then because of who I'm interviewing, I have to put out everything a certain way because they tell me to.
we all saw Kohberger July 2nd of 2025 raise his right hand, swear the oath while standing up, and explain to the court, including Judge Hippler, that I was adequately represented. I'm doing this voluntarily, willfully.
He said yes to all of those things. If he doesn't say yes to those things, he doesn't get the deal, right? And why are we talking about the obvious? Yes, he said all those things by just saying yes. The dude didn't say anything more than yes. Okay? Now, he's claiming the reason why he said everything that he said. He's giving us a reason why in what he filed. And now I want somebody to talk about, can there be any validity to it? And with everything that you guys have uncovered about spending all this type of money and then to end in a plea deal, spending all this type of money, and then you see the 16 reports that these experts put out, and anybody with a brain would be wondering, why the fuck didn't you go to trial? And then we get to hear people say, oh, because there's stuff that's, that's just not there. And when it would have come out in trial, it would have been bad. There's stuff for both sides, though. What stuff? You guys do understand that nobody can be, in our justice system, in our country, there is no trial by fucking ambush. So what is it that is so damning, that wirh thinks is so damning, that we don't know about, that would come out at trial that we just don't know about? I'm still waiting for that. And they're releasing things in backwards order here with this case. And so that's why we've gotten through the majority of the defense's expert reports, okay? But what we haven't gotten to is these reports that they claim exist for the prosecution. Well, wirh and what's his name? Slavinsky said, yeah, Nick Balance reduced his final report to like 100 page, from 100 and some pages to 30. Then we see that in the PowerPoint presentation that they were going to show, that they took out two major clips, because we got that from Becker's report, who's the vehicle evidence specialist for Bryan Kohberger's case. And he was shocked that the two exhibits that were taken out were the Main Street 1331 cam and the Ridge Road cam. It wasn't used. They weren't and here he's blown away because he's like, wait, this is what they're basing their identification off of, is the Ridge Road camera at 401. And here it's not in, and wasn't going to be part of the video clips that they're showing the jury. Does anybody want to know why? Does anybody want to know why? Because I know why. I figured that out. I figured the why out. And I figured it out a long time ago. And I outed it. So, how is nobody not... Mainstream media has never once gone over any of these reports that have been unsealed. 16 of them. Nobody has talked about the fact that the BAU for the FBI wrote up a report, and they said that these wounds on these victims, first of all, that they were tortured. Number one, they use the word tortured. The FBI does. Tortured. And number two, that they were ritualistic in nature. Crazy.
Without undue pressures. I mean, he's already sworn to these things and admitted that he committed these murders.
So Mike has a phone call with him, and in that phone call, he says that this is about his absolute claim of innocence. Again, he is not trying to pull punches. This is not him being cute as far as, well, I just feel like the evidence really needs to be tested in court. He's saying I'm an innocent man. He goes on to say in this phone call, quote, the intention is for all of those, when asked kind of what do you mean by being innocent, he says the intention is for all of those questions to be investigated and answered appropriately in a trial setting. Why am I breaking my silence? A lot went wrong in those plea discussions. I really do want that to be heard. This to me is, again, a man who thinks he's way too much smarter than everybody else. Remember, this is the guy that thought he committed the perfect murder, thought he was going to get away with it. This was the guy that also committed a murder, it appears, for no other reason than to see if he could get away with it because he thinks he's smarter than everyone else. And I think that also is starting to come through in this written statement and in the calls that he's having, that he wants the world to know he's an innocent man. And I think he's also beginning to realize that the world's starting to forget about him. He's been in prison now and we're sick of it. This was over a year that we were in court hearing him, like you said, raise his hand, take an oath, and say that he committed these crimes. So let's break down for a moment what it is exactly he is trying to argue here. You brought up Garza, and I'm going to do a quick kind of understanding of the law. Garza talks about the idea that while you can waive your right to appeal, and this is so kind of splitting of hairs, Garza really says that doesn't mean that attorneys can reject their clients, the defendant's request to file a notice of appeal. It really doesn't stand for a whole lot more than that. A notice of appeal is just something you need to file in case you ever want to appeal ever. And if you don't file a notice of appeal, you essentially waive your right to it. In the Garza case, he entered a plea where he waived his right to appeal, then turns to his attorneys and says, file a notice of appeal. And they said, no, we're not doing that. You don't have a right to appeal. We're not going to file the notice. The Supreme Court said that was wrong for them to make that decision. He still had a right to file the notice, even though he's waived his right to appeal. Already, I can tell that I'm overcomplicating this. But what's happening here is different than an appeal. Anytime you waive a right in court, and that's what he did. When he entered a plea, he waived a bunch of different rights. He waived his right to trial, most importantly. When you waive a right, you have to do so knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently. And what he's essentially saying in this new petition is that none of that was true. He says, here's some of the quotes from the petition. He says that he falsely confessed to this crime. He said that it was done by coercion, disinformation, false promises, and the withholding of exculpatory evidence. He goes on to say that he was convinced that the actual guilt was not an important factor and that his attorneys, in fact, advised him to lie. He knows this standard. He knows what knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently means. And I think that's what he's trying to say is that, yeah, I waived all these rights, but I didn't do so knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently. And wrapped up in that is what you point out, this kind of IAC, ineffective assistance of counsel claim, that it was because they were pressing him, they were telling him false information, they were misleading him that allowed him to make this plea. So from first blush, I will say he's establishing at least the elements of withdrawing a plea, but
there you go. He's establishing what? First blush. So what's this but? Let's hear it.
Kevin, you sat in court, and what happened in court with the judge when it came time to take his plea?
He asked him repeatedly, and he laid out the facts of the charges more than once, in fact, specifically to each of the four victims.
What aren't people understanding? What does that have anything to do with anything? It doesn't matter how many times you ask me something. If I was told that was exactly what's going to happen in that courtroom, the judge is going to ask you this. And every time he asks you, yes. You could ask somebody 15 times and 15 times they say whatever. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? If you were asked once, you were asked 15 times. Does that change the threat? Does that change the promises? What does that change? Your kid tells you 10 times they didn't take your money out of your wallet. Does that make it the truth? I just don't get it. The question is with him saying what he's saying, does it make any sense? Is there anything here? And you'd have to say yes because of what you've been saying the whole time, Kevin Fixler, which is they spent how much money? They were going to be doing what? And then all of a sudden they did what? Well, why? Who would ever do something like that?
He, again, beyond the swearing of the oath, he asked Ann Taylor whether or not she had represented him to her fullest extent, whether or not she left any opportunities to suppress evidence on the table, whether or not she had adequate time for discovery, which was sort of a snarky remark he was making to her because she had claimed just 2 weeks earlier that she needed untold amount of time. So
Yeah, so she just lied too. And so that you're proving my point here, Kevin. You're proving my point. And I just need you to realize this, that Ann Taylor lied and had no problem lying to Hitler when she said that she reviewed all the evidence when he asked her that. And where 2 weeks before that, she said that she didn't. So she came in front of the judge and lied. And so that makes it more believable that then she lied to Bryan Kohberger because she lied to the judge to say that, did you go through the material? And she's like over here saying, yes, we have it all documented. It's like, how are you saying that? How are you saying that you just said that it's absurd. And if anybody, you have to know that you have to know a case. You have to know a case in order to oral argue it. And Ann Taylor just couldn't pivot to save her life with anything. Nothing. After the ruling on the 31 pages that that Hitler put in for the Franks, okay, that should have been appealed. That's unreal. But then you have to ask yourself, I mean, even with Payne admitting to the fact that they didn't have Bryan Kohberger's name, you have to wonder why you didn't call other people to the stand.
Basically challenged Kohberger to you're guilty because you're pleading guilty because you are guilty. And he says yes. And we all remember that very robotically, that Kohberger went through the yeses and the nos, and everything pointed to he knew what he was being told. He had not practiced this per se and delivered no additional nos, and everything pointed to he knew what he was being told. He had not practiced this per se and delivered no additional.
He had not practiced this per se, then you don't know what the criteria is for these defense attorneys that are death penalty certified. Because I read a whole bunch of crap on that not just the past 24 hours, but even prior to, a ton. Because we knew this day was coming. But Ann Taylor 1000% prepped him.
Allocution or additional information beyond the scope of yes, I am admitting I am guilty, and accepting of essentially the maximum penalties, which were part of the.
Can he use the fact that he didn't allocute because it was like, I can't allocute, and they knew that because I didn't know what had happened. There's nothing for me to tell them. I'm simply saying this, why is everybody fighting this so hard? I'm just curious. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you'd be fighting this so hard. At least Nancy Grace is over here saying there should be a trial. I think everybody should be saying there should be a trial. I think anybody claiming what Bryan Kohberger is claiming in writing, that needs to be taken, Ann Taylor, if she did this, should be disbarred. Right? Who knows? Maybe Ann Taylor's going to write that she was freaking threatened. Who knows? What he is writing, though, and what we have seen, I'm sorry, align. It just aligns. Because Ann Taylor 1000% lied to the courts when she said that she went to the discovery for 2 weeks before that she said that she didn't. I mean, that's a lie in and of itself.
Deal, in addition to no parole and waiving appeal rights.
You remember, too, just for everybody listening, this took place on 2 separate days. You had the entering of the plea on one day, and then we came back later for the sentencing, which included the impact statements. Most, kind of memorable was epilogue to all of it. The important part where the law was really most concerned was in that plea. And as you pointed out, it took, how long did it take? An hour or two? I feel like it took rights, that he's had every opportunity, that he's spoken to his attorneys. And just so everybody understands, most pleas are thorough, but not that thorough. I mean, I've taken hundreds of pleas in court, and they take a matter of 10 minutes tops. This took a considerable amount of time. One, you're involving 4 counts of murder, but 2, I think because the judge was making sure to avoid all of this.
No, it's exactly because of what you just said. This was not one person that was killed, that was 4. That's why it would take 4 times as long. Fucking idiots.
So Kohberger signed, first of all, in writing, if he wants to now claim I didn't understand the words being used in court because I was having a rough day, he signed as well a guilty plea advisory form, a plea agreement, and a factual basis, a written factual basis. Signed all of those things. And then, like you said, here was the exchange between Hitler and Kohberger in court, amongst many others. But Hitler said, I want to make sure that your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty? Kohberger, yes. I don't know how much more straightforward you can get than all of that. I mean, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but go ahead and weigh in on it.
Well, and again, I think that the other element here that Judge Hitler, to try to prevent this sort of thing from happening, somebody who, extreme value of the rule of law, was he asked Kohberger repeatedly, did you have satisfactory public defense? And he answered that question more than once, that yes, I am satisfied with the way they have represented me, the advice I've received. And so I think this is going to be a tall order. And again, I'm no legal expert, but knowing Judge Hitler and how close he sticks to the rule of law, I think it's going to be tough for Bryan Kohberger to show back up in the same courtroom, or a courtroom at the Ada County Courthouse anyway, and justify that the things I told you under oath in your courtroom were untrue.
I agree with you. And I don't think you have to be a lawyer to see that as well. That the entire reason that we had that plea is to address all of these issues, the potential of something like this happening down the road. And I think that an appellate court's going to view it the exact same way, or Judge Hitler first will view it the exact same way. And then if he decides to appeal that, which by the way would not be appealing his conviction, but would be appealing the ruling that Hitler's going to make on this petition to withdraw. But even if he does, I think any reviewing court is going to view it the same way. Like, listen, we got to have finality to these things. And the reason why we walked you through that meticulously and painstakingly was so that you couldn't now say you weren't.
Why are you people missing the boat? If this man was threatened, coerced, everything that he is saying, do you not think that is grounds for somebody to absolutely... What type of precedent are we setting with our fucking lawyers, and the power of our lawyers to just, hey, and we're going to keep you quiet, don't say anything. And when someone doesn't know, and they're going to say, well, he knew. Well, oh, he knew because he's just so familiar with being in a courtroom and how everything works. And this is nuts to me. The dude is simply put, Henry Entin. They kept him out of a courtroom for like 2 years because the state knew that he wanted to get out of a plea deal, and he hadn't been sentenced yet. They were waiting to sentence him. You want to know why? Because they knew that he was going to say this at sentencing. Why? Because they were monitoring his jail calls. So they kept him out of a courtroom for 2 fucking years. Finally, when he gets into a courtroom, because the state coerced a situation that, hey, you're going to say that you're the shooter, and we're going to give you 15 years. Otherwise, we're going for the death penalty on you. We know that you were there. We know that you were part of it, blah, 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 and all these things. But if you admit that you were the shooter and you testify against Shanna Gardner and her husband, Mario Saldana, we'll give you 15. Otherwise, it's death penalty. He never told them anything. He didn't know anything. The dude borrowed his truck. He wasn't there. The dude leaves cell phones in his glove compartment. He has 3 of them. The state knew this. Because guess what? Taco Lou has him on camera hanging out at a restaurant. So let me ask you a question. Henry Entin comes back in. He wants to withdraw his plea. He has to get a new attorney because he said that basically what Bryan Kohberger is saying, and Henry Entin was able to, what the judge say immediately? You want a trial? We're going to give you your trial. Like that. Like that. Now, was he sentenced? No, but it was all but he had taken the plea deal and did all that 2 years prior to that. They just didn't had him sentencing him yet. And the question was why not? Why would this ever take that long? What are you people doing? And they kept pushing back the date to bring him in the courtroom. Well, here we find out why. Here, everything was pushed so quickly for Bryan Kohberger, okay? Something that has taken so many months and years to get through. And that all of a sudden, this is what would happen, on the drop of a dime, and we need to have this done, and this needs to be this way. Bryan Kohberger, unless Ann Taylor is going to lie. Is Ann Taylor going to lie and say that Bryan Kohberger told me that he did it? Bryan Kohberger's always maintained his innocence, and he maintained it then. This is crazy. This should not be precedent. We should be honestly seeing what the hell has transpired here. And people want to say that he just wants his 5 minutes of fame again. What are you talking about? That doesn't even make any sense to me. Because if he was all about fame, he would have never, ever, ever taken a plea deal. Because he would have had his all of these days in the courtroom, like 3 months worth, and then have been just like banking on all of his appeals that he gets to keep on doing this and keep on doing this, and has all these automatic appeals. So who, especially right after the leaking of his phone to Dateline, all this stuff, it's like, what the hell? It doesn't matter about this whole, if you think he's guilty or you think he's innocent, that's not what this matters about. This matters about a process. This cannot be the process. And then people are saying, well, these inmates are just going to say that this is what happened. What are you talking about? Show me where there's inmates that are ever saying this. Tell me how this isn't totally different from everything else. Because it is. Show me inmates that are spending $8 million. 5 of it is on their defense. And then at the last minute says, okay, I did it. He didn't. I have no idea why we're not talking about the facts. This isn't due process. There was no bite of the apple ever. Judge Hippler induced this plea deal. And I think Judge Hippler more or less was like, this plea deal is going to happen because you're not putting this on me. I'm not going to be known as the judge that, had a side and give a killer, throwing out this evidence and doing all this stuff like we keep passing the buck, like from the prosecution. They pass it on to the judge, clean up our mess, pass it on to the jurors, clean up our mess, find him guilty. Off of what? Listen, we used IGG. You guys don't even want to talk about this whole IGG. It's like, this just can't be the way. And I don't know how else to say it. Like, you don't get to play Monopoly. You don't get to play games in life where you get to start with different rules, and this person has to play by these rules, but you get to do it this way, and you get to start the game with $5,000 and you start with 100. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to listen to people talk about that they think that this dude is just writing this up for no reason and he's making this up. He's not. He's not. Well, Lana, how could you say that so confidently? Because Ann Taylor lied. Because Ann Taylor lied to the judge 2 weeks after she just told the judge that there's so much discovery here. I don't even know that they just dumped on my lap at the end of May. How are you then saying 2 weeks later that you've went through it all? Were you lying in May, or are you lying here in June? So if Ann Taylor can lie to the judge, you don't think that she can lie to Bryan Kohberger? Ann Taylor should have withdrawn. That's what should have happened. Ann Taylor should have withdrawn on the eve of trial. She should have tried to withdraw. Then if you're not going to grant me this continuation, then I have no other choice but to withdraw. That's what should have happened. You know what's crazy is that the same mainstream media people that were coming after Ann Taylor in the beginning, saying it was a conflict of interest because she represented Kara and all this bullshit back in the day, they were coming for Ann Taylor's job back then. And now the same people are over here saying that Ann Taylor was phenomenal. Like, whatever narrative, I mean, these people, the audacity, it's comical to me. And so when you ask Lana, why are you laughing? Because it's funny. It is truly funny. These people and how they talk out of their fucking mouths one day and the next day, if you don't think that that's funny, then what do you think it is? It's laughable. It's a joke. They're a joke. They're not serious people, right? How can your argument change? How can your position change? It needs to be consistent throughout whatever it may be. Again, this has nothing to do with guilt or innocence of Bryan Kohberger. This has to do with a process. And if y'all think that this process is kosher, then you're nuts. Because if he's so guilty, guys, it's going to come out, right? And that's how it should. A jury's going to find him guilty, right? There shouldn't be any of this going on. None of it before a trial. And if you thought that Ann Taylor was playing games, like Hitler tried to say a couple different times, like, why didn't you tell me this earlier? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why is Hitler gassing up Ann Taylor? Because that's all lies. Ann Taylor was bringing, I mean, how many motions to compel did we put in? But Ann Taylor wasn't specific enough. She was too vague. And because I don't know why she thought, hey, I don't want to I don't want to show my hand. Sorry, Ann, but you needed to break it down for this man. He couldn't wrap his head around your vagueness.
Advised, or you didn't do this willfully, knowingly, and intelligently. The only caveat I will throw out there is if he somehow is able to present to a judge that he was lied to by his attorneys, that he can somehow prove that they gave him false information, I don't think this has a chance. And I think that him being able to prove something like that is incredibly rare. I have a couple minutes more with you, and I don't want to leave this without acknowledging the family's reaction to this, and specifically your very...
Look at that. He was talking for 24 minutes. 24 minutes. And the most important part of what he said got all of 10 seconds. Right there, that comment, that's what I've been saying.
Judge, that he was lied to by ability to these things, and his conviction, but would be appealing the ruling that Hitler's going to make on this petition to withdraw. But even if he does, I think any review in court is going to view it the same way. Like, listen, we got to have finality to these things. And the reason why we walked you through that meticulously and painstakingly was so that you couldn't now say you weren't advised or you didn't do this willfully, knowingly, and intelligently. The only caveat I will throw out there is if he somehow is able to present to a judge that he was lied to by his attorneys, that he can somehow prove that they gave him false information, I don't think this has a chance. And I think that...
Exactly. If he's able to do that, then what? Then it does have a chance, doesn't it? It has a very, very good chance, doesn't it? But he didn't spend any time talking about that. And I think he has proof. I think he has proof. And I think he has witnesses. And I'm not just talking about during the plea deal.
that him being able to prove something like that is incredibly rare. I have a couple minutes more with you, and I don't want to leave this without acknowledging the family's reaction to this. And specifically, you're very close with the Goncalves family and actually spoke with Steve Goncalves, and he gave you a statement. I'm going to read the statement, and then I just kind of want to get your thoughts on how you feel that they're reacting to all of this continuing nightmare in their lives. This is from Steve Goncalves to Kevin saying, "We're not scared of it. I always stood by the work of the FBI agents and other people. If he wants to fight for the death penalty, that's exactly what we'll go for. And that's what he's facing. There's so much evidence against him in this case, so we're not scared of a trial, not one bit. Good for him."
To your point, I think to continue to drag these families through this experience is hard to fathom. And I will say that when I spoke with Steve on the phone, he wanted to kind of walk through some different things, some potentials. This was something that the Goncalves family was very aware could one day happen. I think they continue to have a bone to pick with the prosecutors, upset that an appeal waiver isn't really an appeal waiver. That's how they perceive it anyway. So there's certainly tough feelings there still. I know that some of the other families are really upset by this news. We can understand that. So I certainly feel for them. But I will also note that the Goncalves family, they were not one of the families that was willing to accept the plea deal. They ultimately had to go along with it because it's what the prosecutor chose.
Okay, I reached out to Steve and asked him if he wanted to comment. This is what I wrote him. I said, "I figured this was coming. He is withdrawing his plea, or he's going to attempt to." I said, "I figured this was coming." This was yesterday at 2:19 p.m. I said, "I would encourage it and say, let's go. Death penalty back on the table. And this fucker starts immediately." Just my 2 cents. Let me know if you have a comment you want shared. Thinking of you all and the other families. That's my message. Just like that. He is withdrawing his plea, or he is going to attempt to. I figured this was coming. I would encourage it and say, let's go. Death penalty back on, and this fucker starts immediately. That would be my position. I said, that's my 2 cents. Steve says, "You summed it up pretty well." You guys, this needs to just go to trial. This is going to be this way forever. Forever. And this shouldn't be the forever. So, ridiculous.
To do, but they were adamant about seeking the death penalty. And so if there is a silver lining to this, and I say that really if, is that they might see an opportunity that if this somehow has any legs, that perhaps it gives them a chance to see what they ultimately wanted as a sentence, the death sentence. And maybe they see an execution of Bryan Kohberger one day.
Yeah, I think the Goncalves family's thinking, let's give him exactly what he's asking for. If he wants his trial and he wants to roll the dice and put the death penalty back on the table, let's give him exactly what he's asking for. I'll be honest with you. I don't disagree with them. I don't think they're going to have that day, unfortunately for them, but I would not be afraid of taking this thing to trial either. Kevin, thank you again so much for your time. Before I let you go, though, can you announce something for us? Are we finally able to talk about something that's coming up for you in the future?
Yeah, so I mentioned I know Mike Baker pretty well, and he noted in his story at the New York Times that he is working on a book about this case. And the exciting news I can share is that I'm co-authoring it with Mike. So interestingly, today I was actually off. I'm off currently for book leave, and I had to return today just given the news and to help my newsroom out and deliver this story. So kind of one day back to the daily and normal grind, but otherwise Mike and I are spiriting forward, and we're some months in. I know Mike Baker pretty well, and he noted in his story at the New York Times that he is working on a book about this case. And the exciting news I can share is that I'm co-authoring it with Mike. So interesting.
There you go. I am co-authoring the book with Mike. He shared it. I can share it now too. I am co-authoring the book with Mike.
Today I was actually off. I'm off currently for book leave.
What the fuck is book leave? You guys, I'm on book leave. I don't even know what that means. I just thought, you're writing a book, you write it, when you can because you're working. I'm on book leave. This is Tina with What the Fuck Tradition Services. That means that there was a substantial amount of money, okay, that was fronted, in my opinion, for this book. I'm just curious, but book leave. Tell that to your fucking employer. Hey, do I get book leave here? Because I write books about my life and I just need to be able to have some quality time every now and again because I write a book about myself and I just need book leave. So do we have that here to go with pregnancy? You know, book leave. I mean, what do we got? Unbelievable. I'm on book leave. This is Tina with What the Fuck Transition Services. What the fuck is book leave? Does the Statesman, do they pay for your, what is it? Benefit still? I mean, what is this? Does the Statesman get a little percentage of the book? So they're cool with it?
And I had to return today, just given the news, and to help my newsroom out and deliver this story. So, kind of one day back to the daily and normal grind, but otherwise Mike and I are spiriting forward, and we're some months in. We've done hundreds of interviews. We're really trying to explain the authoritative, definitive story of this case. And, it continues to unfold. And so the ending is sort of still open-ended, but we have learned so much, so many new things, and we're so excited to share those things with people. It's probably a little ways out, but it is an exciting project, and it's really exciting to work with Mike.
Well, maybe they'll get Ann Taylor now. Maybe since Bryan Kohberger has totally just thrown his entire defense team under the bus. Maybe, yeah.
I have a feeling that your book just got about a chapter longer after today. I'm really looking forward to it. Congratulations to you on that. Please come back to us again when you have more details on release and everything else. But you have been living this thing. This took place November 13th, 2022, was when those 4 beautiful children lost their lives. And you have been living this ever since then. So
her throwing herself out the window, that was a fake attempted suicide.
All right, they go into a different case here. So a couple other crash outs that I want to point out. Ashley Banfield, she crashed out, and then Brian Entin, he had a crash out.
Moments ago, the man convicted of murder.
So let's get him in here. Where is it? Bryan Kohberger with Brian Entin.
Extensively to make sure given. And then this.
Okay, funny story. So I wake up this morning and I'm like, oh my God, I thought the girl just I didn't realize that it was pulled back. So I thought it was just like what Everybody Loves Mary. What's that movie? There's Something About Mary. And so when I popped on to look at this, I started dying because at first I didn't realize it was pulled back. So I thought there was just like a little, anyways, that's what I woke up to.
Keeping an eye on, but I wasn't really sure he would do it, and this is the reason why. I kind of thought with him, he'd have nothing to lose. Like, why not? He's stuck in jail for the rest of his life, in prison for the rest of his life. He might as well try. The worst thing that happens is he gets into trial and he gets a death penalty and is signed death row for decades. So I wasn't really putting it past him. And also there's all these books in the road, the plea book, and all these articles, podcasts, and stuff that probably seemed kind of like revving him up to do it. But the reason I thought maybe he wouldn't do it, and now we know he is, but the reason I thought maybe he wouldn't is I thought maybe he wouldn't want to do it to his family. I was at almost every hearing, and his parents were at several of them, and they were crying. And I know he was close to his mom, and that was one reason I thought maybe he wasn't going to do it. Just I guess I first wanted to ask you just how you and Christy are doing in Olivia, and I know you're at work today. I was just talking to
people I'm with, and you forget that Steve has to work during the day, and he finds out these things like he's got a job like everybody else. You know what I mean? You guys are trying to go on with your lives, and then something like this happens. How are you guys doing?
Oh, yeah, I learned quite early. I think I probably knew what was going on. At least the author, gave me a heads up, which I really appreciated, and that gave me some time to just let the kids know, let the wife know, hey, this is what's happening, and talk to Shannon. Let's figure out the best approach to how this works. And so yeah, that's how our day started, and we just we've kind of learned to just roll with it, and there's only so much you can do, and hopefully you can lean on the people that you trust and love, and get through it.
When you said you spoke to the author, was that of the book, the Broken Plea book?
No, that was Baker who wrote.
Oh, I see. The New York
he
Times,
broke it.
the reporter. So he gave you a heads up before.
Yep, he did, and that's what I was saying. I really appreciated that because it's just better to know what you're about to face than to just get blasted with, all there's so many ways to communicate with people now. So you're getting instant messages and you're getting Facebook alerts and you're getting media alerts. It just gets overwhelming. So you kind of just get yourself, all right, this is what my day is going to look like and I'm ready to deal with it.
Did you suspect it at all? Because I had heard maybe like 2 weeks ago, I started to hear like, oh, there is this deadline and he could possibly file something. Like, did you hear any of those rumblings? Did you have any like sort of feeling this might be coming?
Yeah, we had heard little rumors about this. And I mean, I'll be honest, they were saying it was going to be a little bit longer, possibly in September, but they told me nothing to really worry about. It's not something that it's preventable. You can't prevent it at all. So, just it's coming down the pipe and, get your family in order.
Are you worried about it at all?
No, well, yeah, at first I was a little bit worried because there's a lot of angles at which you can attack, the truth. There's a lot of ways you can go in and say, hey, now that I've seen every bit of evidence, can I poke a little hole through there? Can I find a little place where they didn't have me covered? So I was worried that he would have something really.
Okay, I'm kind of shocked with this comment because you're basically saying that he did not know about the evidence.
The truth. There's a lot of ways you can go in and say, hey, now that I've seen every bit of evidence, can I poke a little hole through there? Can I find a little place where they didn't have me covered? So I was worried that he would have something really good and juicy in there. And so when he writes like he's in third grade. So when you can finally piecemeal what he's saying, and got to write it out and like it's like it needs a translator. But once you figure out what he's saying, there was nothing there. I mean, it was really, really a relief to know that he didn't have something that was big. Because when you've done the crime, you would know how to find where there's little mistakes where they've got things wrong because you were there. So you could poke at those things. And I was just nervous about that.
Yeah, I wonder if after a year in prison there, he's in solitary, or I don't know, he might still be, if this is just like a boredom, like, why not? Like, what do I have to lose at this point? The only thing that I was hesitating, thinking maybe he wouldn't do it, was if he cared about his parents in that way. You're putting your whole family through this again. But then I was thinking, his parents have never come out and acknowledged his guilt, really.
No.
And even the sister who did the interview, said that her heart went out to you and to the victims, but she never said, I can't believe my brother did this.
No, I was a little surprised that he kind of brought them into that paper that he wrote up, the post-conviction relief. He wrote that they were witnesses. So that is something that I'll have to dig into a little bit, figure out, like, I did ask a little bit, like, is it normal for, mass murderer to have his family surrounded by him when he's getting a plea deal? That seems very odd. But, and I was told that is odd. But,
Yep, because they used them to influence this, to get him, to coerce him into this plea deal. Okay.
Maybe, so we're going to figure out what was going on there. But long story short, they're like, it's nothing that can be prevented, and there's not much to be worried about unless he has some type of angle that he's been working on for 3 or 4 years, and that's what he's dropping. And that's mainly what we were concerned with.
You wanted a trial all along.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the things you wanted, it's kind of like people thought you were a little nutty in the moment, and then we kind of keep seeing these things happen where it's like, even you immediately pushed for a confession. You said, if you're going to give him the plea, at least give us that, where he has to verbally confess. I mean, are you kind of looking back thinking like, I wish they would have done some of these things?
I feel aces. I feel like my legal counsel was right on, told me exactly what to expect and what we could do. We knew that he has like this cult-like following of people. So the only way to, pull a cult out of something like that is with hard facts that they can't compose and twist and turn into something else. So if he would have admitted about the second weapon or something along those, where experts could opine on that and say, hey, that fits these details that we've never released, that would have been great. But, Thompson basically said he's the big boy and he had no worries. And I think his official statement was, we don't need it. And he would just probably lie to us if he did. So what that means to me is this will be over, in 6 months. We won't be dealing with this for years. And if we are, then somebody probably should have went back and did his homework and made sure that he got a confession because, he said it wasn't needed. So I'm going to hold him to that.
Yeah, all the lawyers that I've spoken to today seem to think this is kind of like he gets the right to a hearing. This will kind of be a moment. And then it's kind of a closed case.
Who are you talking to, Entin? Who's telling you this? I'm just curious. Like, who knows this case that you're talking to? Who knows the circumstances? Because everybody knows that obviously once you get into the post-conviction phase of the criminal justice system, the blanket is, it's really hard to get out of that. No shit. Right? But This isn't like any other, this isn't just any other case. Okay, this is a case that $8 million was spent, 5 supposedly on the defense, and then at the last minute, the defense team has to pull like these crazy loops, hoops, and swoops to get a plea deal for their client to agree to a plea deal. When he's always maintained his innocence, and so has his defense team. And so has 16 expert reports that support the fact that this is not the narrative. That what the government's presenting, yeah, this is wild. So I'm curious, did Bryan Kohberger get to read any of his expert reports because they were all sealed? Like, did he not get to see any of those? Did Ann Taylor, provide him? Was Ann Taylor saying, no, I don't want to give anything cross-changed because people are spying on me? I mean, I have no idea.
After that.
Yeah, it's part of a process that was probably established in case law, 10 years ago, and now everyone uses that as the script to go through it. So I'm frustrated for Idaho that we've wasted so much money on a guy who was never even a member of our state. We've really been stuck with a huge, heavy burden of $8 million, and we get to let this loser go back at us, and it's a bummer. And I really feel for my fellow Idahoans and what we have to go through, but I really appreciate that they've always been there for us, and I'll stick with it. We'll fight as hard as we can, but I think this is just a little process here, and it's not going to turn up, and I'm hoping that we don't go waste a bunch more money on a case that's already been solved.
Did you talk to Bill Thompson, or did they call you? Did they know this was coming?
On a case that's already been solved. This has been a case that's already been pled to. Solved? But definitely a case that was pled to.
I got the sense that call was a collect call, very recent, and no, they didn't know. So that's not word. That's just how it was.
Bill Thompson, or did they call you?
That we don't. I'll stick with it. We'll fight as hard as we can, but I think this is just a little process here, and it's not going to turn up, and I'm hoping that we don't go waste a bunch more money on a case that's already been solved.
Did you talk to Bill Thompson, or did they call you? Did they know this was coming?
I got the sense that call was a collect call, very recent, and no, they didn't know. So that's not word. That's just how it was described to me. Individual call. That was like a collect call from prison. Picked it up and bam. Now, he said he did have a little backstory with working with the sister, so maybe there's a little bit of trust established there. But that's how it was described to me. So I would think that.
Are you talking about the call with Mike Baker?
Mike Baker, yeah,
That's how he described it. Call from Kohberger.
Mm-hmm. And
okay.
He was pretty shocked, and he just told him, "This is what I'm doing. This is my plan." So that's why I'm reading into it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was new to him as well. To Thompson as well.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so yeah, it's not like Bill Thompson saw it. But has he called you since? Have they?
You guys, it was when this paperwork was handled. 7/22. We get the news on 7/26. Come on now. Come on. Bill Thompson didn't know. 7/22 is when Bryan Kohberger is signing documents. Give me a fucking break. If you believe that, you're a fucking moron.
Called the families today to sort of be like, hey, don't worry, or this is what we're going to do?
We did get an email from, I believe, Lautau County Court that basically just said this is the process that happens. Nothing to be concerned. We're not saying anything that was dropped in that write-up that concerns us.
If there, I mean, it sounds like there will probably be a hearing regardless. Would you guys go to the hearing, do you think? Or I guess it's still a ways out.
Good question. You know what? Probably just for the fact of honoring my community, honoring the process and everything that we've gone through. I'd probably show up just to be thankful for everything that's happened. And like I said, $8 million, that should be respected. How hard that the state fights for life. We put our foot down, and we've tried to make sure that this doesn't become a new normal here. And that means I probably need to show up at the court case, regardless if it's a petty thing or not.
How's everything going with the foundation?
Things are going really well. We've got to the point where we've gotten all the paperwork done, the 501(c)(3)s, and all that stuff is done. So now we have to really hone down on finding the right case where we can find a family that is got like a prosecutor or an investigator who's willing to reach out and talk to us and say, hey, all right, how do I use this money to find a lab? Here's my lab. Do you guys have a connection? So yeah, we're going through that. It's been very healthy for the girls to have something positive to work towards, to not just say that something good is going to happen out of something bad, but actually be making good happen. So yeah, it's been really good. It's actually
right now, he has filed this on his own. He has requested the appointment of counsel. It will not be Ann Taylor. And it's not even guaranteed for non-death penalty cases, which ironically the big reason for him entering this plea is to avoid the death penalty, but that could prove the undoing of him being able to get counsel. I hope it doesn't. I think he certainly is due, and I think certainly the circumstances here strongly suggest that he should be appointed counsel. You just need to know it is discretionary with the court to appoint that or not. So I'll be anxiously awaiting the appointment of his appellate counsel. So I hope, and I think that will happen. I can't imagine that they're going to, after all of this, that they're not going to appoint counsel for him. But again, that's the first, one of the first hurdles he's got to overcome here. Let's see. The article talks about the plea and everything. Being that Lana went through it, that it is authentic, and we're going to look at that in just a moment. We'll kind of dissect that. We have confirmed that it is authentic. That even just as we were starting this, we were kind of concerned about that, but we have confirmed multiple places, including that Lana went through it, that it is authentic. And so I don't know that there's anything really.
Well, let me ask.
I'm just so happy that we over here at Truth and Transparency can be a trusted resource to the custody queens. Yeah, we exchanged texts yesterday and sent, and I was like, this is legit. So remember, Custody Queens interviewed Brent Turvey. There's language that Brent Turvey brought. There's language that Chris Whitcomb brought, and now Bryan Kohberger is bringing that same language. Interesting, right?
Ask you this, Ron. What do you make of the fact that this is his first real comment? Is making it to the Times? What do you make of the timing of that?
Well, he's coming up on the deadline. There's a couple of deadlines, and I think, in fact, is it today? The 27th is the 1 year from his judgment becoming entered. He actually has another 42 days because it actually expires at the time of the appeal. So I think what he's doing is great. This is how it's kind of how I work too. You take the earliest of the deadline, you get something filed. He's got that filed, and now the hope is he's going to have counsel appointed who can then file an amended petition, because you do need to have a lot of evidence or at least facts included in there, which he wasn't able to get into this. I don't see that as really a problem or any issue. I think they'll be able to file an amended petition, and we'll get a lot more detail once that's filed. This kind of answers some of the speculation we had. I know that there is another appellate matter going on, as I understand it. That is Ann Taylor's appeal regarding her billings. I think in one of these articles that I've seen, it was said that this prosecution plus paying for his defense has cost the state of Idaho somewhere like $8 million, and it may go a little higher now. But no, this is fascinating. This is I think this has the potential, if it's successful, to just blow the top off of this, and let's see what really happened.
Yeah, and it seems to me like there is clearly some thought process involved in deciding that, the day before he makes his filing, he's going to make his first public comment. Yeah.
No, it really, I think this has been in the works for a bit. I'm sure he and his family have been discussing this, and I'm thrilled that he's making the attempt now, because I don't want to see an.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can get Custody Queens. I have some questions. See if I can get the Custody Queens to come on later this evening for a crash out. Come and crash. All right. can him recuse himself?
It's a person in jail in prison for the rest of his life. And I'm
General pleas, but I think there's going to be a lot more specificity to it. So it wouldn't shock me if we know the answer to that very soon.
Yep. For real. So he says, the following is material to the inception of the plea. Nothing. He's referring to something different than Dr. Turvey is referring to. And Dr. Turvey is referring to something that he discovered only after going to the place where the evidence was kept and physically inspecting himself, this debris that turned out to be hair. It was apparently sent to the FBI, and they did some macro. I find it ironic that it's macro testing under a microscope, but they looked at it under the microscope. They did not take DNA, did not attempt to hair. The documents prepared by law enforcement as debris. There is a report, I think it's in the autopsy report or maybe in one of the other reports that I have seen, that does refer to a single strand of hair that law enforcement did recover from his hand and which was tested. And I can't remember if that one was tested to be consistent with Ethan or with Santa. Okay, that's the hair that I believe Cy was referring to in his interview with us. That he found, that he said that he thought nothing of, that it was a big nothing. He's referring to something different than Dr. Turvey is referring to. And Dr. Turvey is referring to something that he discovered only after going to the place where the evidence was kept and physically inspecting himself, this debris. And this confirms that. And that's what Dr. Turvey told us, that he sat down with counsel and at least one expert, not Dr. Turvey, who basically, it looks like, shared with him all the horrors of death row. And it looks to me like how they showed how horrific being on death row would be versus being in prison on a life sentence. So I get the impression here that they told him, look, if you fight it and you get death penalty, yeah, you get to appeal and everything, but your life on death row is going to be horrific. And here's what I did. I went and I toured an actual death row cell, and this is what your life would be until you die. Versus, what did they tell him? I don't know what they told him about what life in prison would be. Would it be, easier, better, at least some sort of a life that he could have lived?
Well, and can you scroll back up a little bit, Ron?
Scroll back up, yeah.
Yeah, because
that's not scroll.
Yeah, this part, the death row was imminent.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what that means. I mean, was he told, like, you're going to go to trial and you're going to lose and you're going on death row? And this is kind of the concerning part. And these are certainly all allegations. We're not making any accusations, but the concerning part is, as an attorney, you need to ensure that you're thoroughly advising your client regarding the facts, regarding, discovery, regarding the process, and putting them in a position so that they can make a meaningful decision about their lives. And so at some point, is there a crossover to your trusted advisor is providing you information that, if you're relying on it, is no longer putting you in a position where you really are meaningfully making a decision? Because if this is true, if you think that your only two options are you are imminently 100% going to horrifically be on death row, or you accept the plea and it's irrelevant whether or not you're innocent or guilty, like, that doesn't feel like a choice.
Yeah. So, we suspected, and because it's the impression that we got from Dr. Turvey, that something happened in that meeting with Bryan and Ann Taylor. And
again, Dr. Turvey wasn't in the meeting, right? We just know that it happened.
Right. So I don't want to attribute anything to him, but the suspicion that I had is that things were said designed to convince him to take the plea, because it sounded like before that he was not he was not leaning in that direction. Now, did Cy say that, or was it something else that came out? Maybe it's in that documentary. Kristen gave us some homework to watch that new documentary that just came out on Netflix, and my wife and I watched it. I think they said on that they claim in that documentary that it was Bryan in the defense who went to the prosecution, and in fact I think one of the prosecutors claimed that was the case. I'm not sure that was the.
Wait, what? What new documentary came out? What? I thought that was tomorrow.
Case, because that certainly did not seem to be their stance prior to
accountable for that conversation, unless something like this occurs, get themselves in a situation where they're saying something that's too far, that is putting someone in a position where they truly aren't, at least as alleged, having the right to have a meaningful choice.
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately it's the client's choice, and I know that when we're trying to resolve divorces or domestic violence cases, what we do is we try very hard to give, if you do this, this is what I would expect. If you do that, this is another option. This is what I would expect if we do this. This would be this. I can even go so far as to say I would prefer, and I think the better choice is this. But how would you like to proceed? If, despite the fact there are times I do want to try to beat it into my client's head, that's not a job.
Right. You're then overstepping. And that's why I can't remember who said it, and I might be misspeaking, but I thought there was some discussion about Ann Taylor saying it was his decision, it was his decision, it was his decision. And to the extent that happened, I don't know if that's true, but to the extent that happened, that kind of shows you from the mindset of an attorney is you aren't supposed to be the person that's making that decision. So it should be someone else. And because of that, it is that person's decision. It is difficult to ensure when there's an attorney-client confidential communication that that's actually what happened. Because until Bryan's raising it and until he's making these allegations, like, we would never know, and he would have a right not to waive that. And we would never know what happened in that meeting or meetings.
Yeah. So it's
right there. That's my question. My question is if Bryan Kohberger has always maintained his innocence, right? Has never made any incriminating statements. Wouldn't it be in Bryan Kohberger's best interest to waive client attorney privilege? Can you waive client attorney privilege for a limited purpose? To talk about like what happened with this plea?
I can't remember who said it, and I might be misspeaking, but I thought there was some discussion about Ann Taylor saying it was his decision, it was his decision, it was his decision. And to the extent that happened, I don't know if that's true, but to the extent that happened, that kind of shows you from the mindset of an attorney is you aren't supposed to be the person that's making that decision. So it should be someone else. And because of that, it is that person's decision. It is difficult to ensure when there's an attorney-client confidential communication that that's actually what happened. Because until Bryan's raising it and until he's making these allegations, like, we would never know, and he would have a right not to waive that. And we would never know what happened in that meeting or meetings.
Yeah. So it's interesting that all this stuff that over these months we've been kind of speculating about and presuming and inferring. Some of those are seem to have some basis in reality here. Some of the things about how the plea agreement came about whether Bryan really did have a full opportunity to know what all the evidence was. Did he know? We questioned whether he knew about the hair and everything, and it turns out he didn't. Wow, that's huge to me.
I mean, it's beyond huge, and I couldn't agree with you more, because it's like it would be hard to understand how someone could know that information and enter a plea. And I think that's where all of the sort of misinformation comes from, people who just are of the opinion, and you can have your opinion, but that if you accept a guilty plea, it means you're guilty. I definitively do not believe that's true. And I think that this is a good example.
Yeah, he certainly is. He certainly is not acting like someone who knows he did it. No, this is what I would expect from somebody who was pressured into a guilty plea and firmly believes he's innocent. So unfortunately, the burden of actually that he has to overcome is much more than convincing me of his innocence. Unfortunately, if it was up to me, it might be a different story. There's another page to this document.
Okay.
Let me put that up. Stop sharing. Whoops. I'm going to share this new page.
And while you're doing that, Kristen is reminding us that we even brought up to Dr. Turvey when he was on, he always believed there was a good chance he did not understand the evidence the prosecution had or the evidence his team had to the full extent. And yeah, this seems to confirm that. I agree, Kristen.
Oh yeah, and remember, the hair even came before the questions about the knife sheath and the chain of custody for that. That was something that Turvey was exploring the week leading up to the plea. So we don't even know that he knows anything about that there are issues with that, and that was not properly challenged, for instance. Because to me, after all the interviews we've had, after looking at everything, the only potentially inculpatory evidence that ties Bryan to the murders is the DNA on the knife sheath, for whatever that's worth. I'm not even convinced that itself is enough. We've had some discussions, or maybe they've just been in my head, about addressing some of those things in the future regarding that DNA evidence. But clearly, based on wirh, even someone who believes Bryan is guilty says that the cell tower evidence is garbage. I think we know that the car evidence is garbage, and so all you have is the DNA on the knife sheath. Imagine if the chain of custody was such that you can't trust that, which is the reason you have the chain of custody, so that there's no opportunity for people to mess with it or try to create something that isn't there. And the fact that Dr. Turvey was specifically
Okay. From the book, page 376, Broken Plea. Ann Taylor calls Matt Gamet to the stand. How did they get the DNA? Because we have a contractual relationship with them since early 2021 with Othram. How did they get the DNA? The DNA sample itself, Gamet clarifies. That DNA sample was delivered by Moscow Police Department in person to them at Othram. According to ISP Supplement 56, Corporal Chad Wilford transported the K-bar sheath from Moscow to the State Police Crime Lab in Meridian, Idaho on November 16, 2022. On the chain of custody form, his last name is, for some reason, spelled Willerfon, Willerfonn. Willerfon. Did you have any role in that? Taylor asks. That would be like from Moscow on the 16th going to Boise. His answer to that. I accompanied the officer from Boise down to Houston. It has nothing to do with number 56. And down to Othram Laboratory. I didn't have possession of the sample, but I was with the investigator that did. The evidence was transported to Othram on November 22nd. And when were they notified to stop work? I believe the official notification was on December 10th, if I remember correctly. The two talked back and forth about operational logistics and procedures using language of the trade like SNP, YSTR, and wet work, defined as anything that would be done in the physical laboratory. So after that, they have a recommendation for you? Taylor asks. The recommendation, to my recall, was that they had several individuals that had the potential to be of interest in this investigation. They asked us if, to further their family tree building, if we could be in contact with individuals and see if they were willing to contribute information into the database that they were using in order to further the family tree building and further the IGG work. For the record, Gamet is telling Taylor that Othram Lab had identified several individuals based on DNA analysis of the K-bar sheath found in Mogan's room. In quotes, and we're in a closed setting here, so I'm going to ask you to give me the last name. I don't recall the last name, Gamet says. I'm sorry. Do you guys understand that when Othram uploaded the work, it was on December 8th, and they were told on December 10th to stop working? So my question is when did all of this occur? There'd only be one day that this could have possibly occurred, potentially two. December 8th and December 9th. And then there's no report of Victoria Gooch calling anybody. Neither is there Matthew Gamet. They filled out no reports, took no notes, have nothing, no knowledge of anything. Nothing to supply. So she says, and we're in a closed setting here, so I'm going to ask you to give me the last name. Well, I don't recall the last name, Gamet says. Was it your understanding that these were four brothers? Yes. Okay, what did you do in relationship to these four brothers? So we did some cursory work, just like looking in publicly accessible information, literally Google searches and things of that nature. What our approach was is we didn't want to be approaching people, especially with an investigation of this nature, that really had nothing to do with anything. We just wanted to make sure there was some reason why Othram Laboratories was asking us to go and ask these individuals to put their DNA into the database that law enforcement can search. And so the question should be is, how the fuck is Othram saying to do something like that, okay, if they wouldn't be having a parallel investigation with and during the time that the feds are using and going into other databases, okay, to see and work it backwards to see who you would need to put into the right database to make it so that you're able to connect things, reverse engineering it, okay, without knowing the reverse engineer yet. Now, Lano, how do you know these dates? Well, because I've been putting together every single report in a completely ridiculous timeline that says and shows this is exactly when these reports say things were done, and there's just no time for anything. For example, with this, that's why there is no report on when Victoria Gooch was never even asked if she did any of this shit. So we just did some work to build just some very cursory family trees to see what connections these individuals might have and to verify these individuals were indeed brothers, things of that nature. And Taylor says, did you verify they were 4 brothers? Taylor asks. I don't know that we would use the word verify, but we believe that the information was reliable, that they had given us based on the publicly accessible information. Now, I know you said you can't remember the last name of these 4 brothers. We're here today, and Bryan Kohberger's name has been on the news for 2 years. You know his name. That wasn't the last name. That was not the last name, Gamut says. Taylor takes great pains to verify for the record, that the first genetic profile developed by a state-contracted laboratory based on DNA found on the thumb snap underneath inside part of the K-bar sheath was not Bryan Kohberger's. She asks what happened next, and Gamut tells her they contacted one of the 4 brothers who said he wanted nothing to do with the investigation. After that, things happened quickly. And guys, this is insane. He says, in quotes, there was a meeting to my knowledge, Gamut testifies. And I don't remember exactly when, but probably the morning of December 10th, when we had a meeting. It was over the phone with representatives from Moscow Police Department. I believe FBI had representatives on the phone call, ISP, I believe myself, ISP legal counsel, and I believe the colonel of the state police was on the phone call. What happened on that phone call? In that phone call, we were asked to turn over any kind of investigative records that we had, any kind of information that we had to the FBI team. They provided me with an email address to be able to provide what they were requesting from us, which was, to my memory, it was the login information, essentially. It was he was about to say the 2 what? The 2 profiles. They've always maintained that the FBI created that second profile. Well, I think there's a slip of the tongue here. Provided the 2, oops, I can't say that, because that would allude to the fact that author made both profiles. And that's what I've been saying, because I talked to Gabriela Vargas, and she said, you do know that the FBI doesn't make profiles, right? I said, I thought that's what we talked about. She said, yeah. She said, you're on the right track. You've been on the right track. She's like, the timeline doesn't match up at all. There's just no fucking way that this happened. Even with December, what day do you think that the FBI took over and they had to start from scratch and make a new double the size profile? When do you think that happened? I said, well, December 10th, maybe December 13th. December 13th, and you think that everything turned around and they knew Bryan Kohberger's name on December 19th? I said, yeah. She said, haha. She said, haha. I said, I'm going to send you over Leah Larkin's report. Tell me what you think. Ready? So, to my memory, it was the login information, essentially, and it might have been other things. And then now we know that that's just not, because there's an email where Leah Larkin points out, she's like, they wouldn't need to give them any information. If they were working, you don't need to do any of this. Taylor asked Gamut what they turned over, and he mentions database information. When you say 2 databases, do you mean the 2 genetic genealogy databases that allow law enforcement search? Yes, but he never said that. That doesn't also make any sense. To my knowledge, these samples were searched in 2 databases that allow searching by law enforcement. I believe they were the 2 that were searched, and we were asked to provide those credentials, that information to the FBI. He's lying, in my opinion, because it makes no sense. Gamut confirms that Othram provided what is called a preliminary report, which contained no notes or work product. And they were then told to terminate the testing. It should be noted that law enforcement agencies may be given access to CODIS, but not private DNA bases. Yes. Taylor asks, why was the decision made for the FBI to take over and not let Othram finish? I don't know. You don't know, motherfucker. I don't know. Yeah, you do. Gamut says, I can't speak to that. And this is where Ann Taylor's line of questioning moves from the ridiculous to the sublime. She has already secured sworn testimony from lead detective Brett Payne that the FBI never told him they found Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the sheath. She has put former lab director Nolan on the record stating that Othram was a state-approved vendor. She has put Gamut on the record saying Othram obtained a profile from DNA found on the K-bar sheath and traced it to 4 brothers who were not named Kohberger. She has established that virtually everything Latah County Prosecuting Attorney Bill Thompson has said about his only physical evidence is false. And Ann Taylor could not just fucking put this together and say, we need to present this in front of the jury. Okay, Taylor asks, did you ever take a look at the 2 profiles? The FBI's SNP profile and the Othram's profile? Have you ever looked at those? Did we look at those or did I look at those? Did you? I did not know. Have you ever seen them? No. Would it surprise you to know that the FBI profile was over twice as big as Othram's? Again, I have no knowledge of what the FBI did or didn't do. Again, answers. I have no knowledge or, yeah. Any of the work that Othram did in getting the DNA sample all the way down to SNP profile, where are they? Taylor asks. Where is the documentation of that? Gamut responds. I do not have that documentation. That was not provided to us to my knowledge. And I don't know everything that was provided back to the laboratory potentially, but to my knowledge, we were not provided with that information. Would Othram have it? Potentially, I don't know. The work that they did to come up with a name to give you for further investigation, where are those documentations or those documents? I don't know. This is why I'm telling you I don't believe that Bryan Kohberger's name came from this. They hid behind it. Okay. The DoorDash driver said she first parked behind the house based on GPS. GPS. So remember when I was asking Chris would come, I was like, listen, where are you getting this shit from? Based on GPS. But then got out and walked around front trying to verify the address. McMichael said she started to walk down the road, which runs north and south, immediately to the east of the residence. McMichael stated a tan sedan drove next to her while she was walking. For some reason, police did not trust her recollection. At that point, McMichael pulled into the front parking lot before she dropped the order off. The Elantra pulled in behind McMichael's vehicle and then exited the King Road at approximately 3:58. McMichael did not mention seeing the white Elantra behind her at any time. Perhaps she did, but it appears that police did not believe her. Subsequent investigation of video footage and cellular data showed the tan sedan McMichael saw was likely a light-colored SUV which left the area. Those who view the 1112 video for themselves will see that an unidentified SUV did arrive at 3:46 and 07 hours. But that is almost certainly McMichael arriving in her gray Forester. She can be seen walking with a flashlight at 3:51 and 42 seconds, time-stamping her presence in front of the house, and we can see from the video that no other vehicle drives down King Road until 3:53 and 38 seconds, when a light-colored sedan leaves via King Road toward Taylor. At 3:56 and 24 seconds, a white sedan enters the neighborhood and passes King to Queen out of sight, only to return at 3:58 and 19 seconds. McMichael's Subaru is seen leaving the area at 4 and 38 seconds, making it impossible that she saw an SUV. What it sounds like to me what happened here is that somebody pulled into the whites, parks, lets somebody out, somebody walks up those stairs and goes and gets into a vehicle and then leaves. Do you know what time you guys ready to faint? Do you know what time Jacob Tisdall said that he was done working his street patrol portion of the night? None other than 3:52. Do you want to know what time his time card said? 5. Do you want to know what 3:52 is? 3:52 is dead in the middle. 3:52 is dead right here in the middle of when this sedan, when a light-colored sedan leaves via King Road towards Taylor. 3:53 and 38 seconds. So I thought about that some more, of why Jacob Tisdall would be saying that he stopped working at 3:53 only to clock out at 5 via his filling out of the paperwork to get his hours for his undercover shit. What it seems like to me is that there's a potential that Jacob Tisdall dropped somebody off who was his rider, which was Nate Rosendahl. And what it seems like to me is that Nate Rosendahl parked in the back behind there, since they were running like a, plainclothes operation, right? That he parked his vehicle back there, and that this is why Nate Rosendahl was kind of erased on accident. But this vehicle that just leaves out, that Molly saw a guy, what she thought was blonde spiky hair. At 3:56 and 24 seconds, a white sedan enters the neighborhood and passes King to Queen out of sight, only to return at 3:58 and 19 seconds. McMichael's Subaru is seen leaving the area at 4 and 38 seconds, making it impossible that she saw an SUV. Why, one might ask, is this important? The single least debatable fact in this entire case is that a white four-door sedan traveled in and out of the neighborhood numerous times until 4:20 and 45 seconds, when it leaves at a high rate of speed and disappears southeast of Walenta. Bill Thompson made it a part of his evidentiary testimony at Kohberger's change of plea hearing. At approximately 4:20 that morning, he said, defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he had gone that route. What no one has yet publicly discovered, however, is that there is another vehicle that presents compelling questions about who might have gone in and out of the house Sunday morning. Oddly enough, this mystery starts with Dylan Mortensen. She told police she saw a dark truck passing the house just after the crimes. In order to place this vehicle in context, we need to return to her November 17th, 2022 interview with ISP Detective Vicky Gooch and MSP Detective Dustin Blaker. Though we have covered the written summary of this discussion, the author has obtained the actual audio recording, which had not been released to the public at the time of this writing. This interview was conducted at Mortensen's residence in Boise, with her lawyer, Robin McPherson, present via video feed from the Sullivan Law offices in Moscow. I never knew that Robin McPherson was from Sullivan Law. Can you think of anything else right now? Gooch asks. No. Oh, so this is something else that I remember. Cars do come by a lot, but I remember looking out the window. I just remember, I think it was a black truck. I don't remember. I don't know for sure, but like that is normal for cars to go by. But like, I don't know if that could be something, just a car driving past our driveway. What time was that at? Gooch asks. That was right when I went down to see Bethany. So I don't know exactly when that was. Was it moving? Was it in movement? It was moving. It wasn't stopped at all. It was moving, and like people drive by our driveway like around this side housing neighborhood a little bit. Like we hear cars go by all the time. That's not weird. But but when you were making your way to Bethany's room, that's not when it was when I got into Bethany's room. I don't know why I looked out the window, but I saw a car drive by. And I believe it was I shouldn't say I believe because I don't know for sure, but I think it was a black truck. But I don't know for sure. It could have been, it was dark, and I just thought it was a black truck. Now I want to show you guys something. Report page of Idaho State Police, Leslie Lehman and her fuckerage. Okay. Here we go. Leslie Lehman. During my canvass, I met blank at blank Castoga Street. Blank was in his driveway on November 13th, 2022, between 4 and 5 o'clock, working on a vehicle. Blank recalled seeing a dark, larger SUV southbound at approximately 4. Blank called me on December 16th, 2022, and left a message reiterating witnessing this SUV. Emails exchanged with Blank and the message left by Blank were placed on disk and given to the Moscow Police Department to be attached to this case file under this supplemental. This right here is what we are hunting right now. As luck would have it, one can actually document her statement via the 112 door cam recording. At 4, now this is where Chris is wrong, but this is what he's saying. At 4:23 and 49 seconds, a dark full-size SUV passes in front of 1122 King Road with a distinctive audio signature caused by what appears to be very loud exhaust. Unlike the white sedan, this dark SUV turns right on Taylor Road instead of left on Walenta. We know this because of the dumpster video, which clearly shows it passing eastbound on Taylor at 4:25 and 17 seconds. Things start to get interesting, however, when the dark SUV returns to King Road at 4:28 and 49 seconds as documented by the 1112 camera. Review of the dumpster video verifies it returning along Taylor Road, meaning it left the neighborhood just 5 minutes after the white Elantra, then returned about 4 minutes later. Now, what we are able to prove is that the 424 vehicle that left, cops wanted to assign to a woman that had nothing to do with that vehicle. Why? Because it's fucking problematic. It's very problematic. And the vehicle leaves at 4:23 and 49 seconds. And then a vehicle returns. Chris believes it's the same vehicle. We know that it's not. But it's even worse that it's not. Okay? Because now, when he says things start to get interesting, however, when the dark SUV returns to King Road at 4:28 and 49 seconds, as documented by the 1112 camera. It documents a vehicle coming there 1000. Review of the dumpster video verifies it returning along Taylor Road, meaning it left the neighborhood just 5 minutes after the white Elantra, then returned about 4 minutes later. What really stands out, however, is a third set of images captured by widely known footage referred to as the Linda Lane video. This is the same camera police relied upon to document travel of the white Elantra before and after the crimes. Careful review of the footage shows the boxy SUV parked nose in, facing the camera. At 4:23:17, an unidentified subject carrying a backpack can be seen walking from the direction of 1122 King Road across the parking lot towards the truck. They appear to open the tailgate of the SUV, which triggers the interior dome light, then climbs in through the driver's side door. Here is where things start to get weird. The SUV leaves its parking spot near Linda Lane, passes down Queen, turns right onto Taylor, and returns by the same route approximately 4 minutes later. Instead of returning to its original parking space, however, it stops in front of 1122 King Road. We know this because the Linda Lane video shows that it did not return, and the distinctive sound of its exhaust is recorded by the door cam at 1112. Based on that recording and the SUV's distinct exhaust, it seems clear that this vehicle stops in front of 1122, idles there for about 30 seconds, then shuts down its engine. You can hear a door close. Although the 1112 camera did not provide visual evidence, a witness did. According to police, a neighbor named Nick Makowicz contacted them. November 18th, to report hearing the loud engine Sunday morning around 4:30. ISP Detective Hugh Powell documented the call in ISP Supplement 196, noting that Makowicz lived at 1106 King Road. Powell wrote, after going to bed, he had been asleep for approximately an hour when he was awoken by a vehicle with loud exhaust speeding away down the street past his house. Makowicz said he did not actually see the vehicle, but a different neighbor did. On February 16, 2023, Detective Payne interviewed a man named Jeffrey Manning. He wrote in LCPA Supplemental 147. Manning started by stating he lived at 1868 Constantine Drive in Moscow and had called in a tip earlier on the investigation about seeing a vehicle drive by his house at approximately 4:25 to 4:30 on the morning of November 13th. Manning told me he was out in front of his house at that time placing items into his recycling and trash bins. Manning told police he could not describe the vehicle other than its headlights, teardrop-shaped taillights, and unusually loud exhaust. He believed it was an SUV. Payne reported. This would be the same guy that I think Leslie Lehman wrote about. Thanks. Again, we're going to be going through all of this shit because we have names now. Okay? And these people, we need to see if actually on the recording what they're truly saying. But everything involves an SUV. An SUV that the police were so adamant to say that a woman who was working some night shift who wasn't even there, it was you, wasn't it? You came home to check on your cats, right? Absolutely crazy. This dude believed it was an SUV. Now, Manning also told me the vehicle was going faster than usual, but did not seem to be driving erratically or dangerously. Manning told me it was quite unusual for anyone to be driving in that area at that time and said he had not seen many cars driving at that time since the morning of November 13th. It seemed that the police were not the only ones aware of this SUV. Manning stated he was contacted by someone from the Kootenai County Public Defender's Office who asked him about the dark SUV he caught on security camera. Payne wrote, adding that Manning did not have any surveillance footage to give them. Perhaps not, but fortunately, the camera at Linda Lane did. At 6:23 a.m., the mystery SUV returned to its original parking spot to the east of 1122 King Road, near Linda Lane. It appears that the same person who entered the vehicle at 4:23 exits the driver's side door with a backpack and walks west back towards 1122 King Road. For the record, this is the dark SUV with the same distinctive exhaust that is documented leaving and returning approximately 4 minutes after the crimes by 3 witnesses and 3 separate cameras. More importantly, it's actually 2 people. It's actually 2 people. Because you have the SUV that leaves at 4:23. The vehicle that comes back is at 4:29. That's a different vehicle. But it does go into the 1122 parking lot, which we believe is the Explorer. But then the return of the vehicle at 6:23, who left for basically 2 hours. 4:23 to 6:23. 2 hours. Again, For the record, this is the dark SUV with the same distinctive exhaust that is documented leaving and returning approximately 4 minutes after the crimes by 3 witnesses and 3 separate cameras. This is the vehicle that left Linda Lane only to park for 2 hours in front of the crime scene and return to its original parking spot 2 hours later. The camera at 1112 King Road provides no indication that the vehicle started or moved during that time. For those wondering what might have happened inside the house in the 8 hours after the crimes, who might have cleaned up the common areas of the second floor and where all of those blood-soaked materials might have gone, the dark SUV prompts compelling discussion. To this day, no one has identified the distinctive-looking vehicle with the easily identifiable exhaust. Why did someone walk out to it at 4:30 in the morning, put something in the back, and drive away only to return what they think is 4 minutes later and park in front of the house, only to then repark in its original spot 2 hours later? As with so many unanswered questions, now that Kohberger has admitted to the crimes, no one seems to care. We're close. The best part about all of that is that the police knew. The police knew. And that's why they needed this DD woman. They lied and said that she in an interview said that oh yeah, that could have been her because she went home to pet her cats and check on her cats. It's absolutely wild. And Dee Dee didn't say anything like that in her interview. She drives a Blazer. And her Blazer was parked on the hillside, and she never returned home that night at all from 10 p.m. to 6, because she was working. And that night she said, I couldn't have left because I was the only one there, and I didn't leave that night. Woo! The 423 and the 635 SUV have a very distinct door slam as well. Sounds like white metal, almost like a Jeep door. I thought the person was carrying a child. Could be a backpack. I think that the 423 and the 623 vehicle are the same. The 429 vehicle, though, I believe is the Explorer. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.